April 9th meeting of the City of West Sacramento City Council, the West Sacramento Redevelopment Agency, and the Finance Authority. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that on the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place, and who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Council met in closed session this evening on the items listed in the agenda. Mr. City Attorney, please provide a report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the council met in closed session for the items listed on the agenda. No reportable action was.
All right. We would like to invite our guests to join council and staff in the pledge, which will be led by Mr. Alex Hirsch. Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. As is noted on our agenda, City Council is prohibited by state law from discussing or taking any action on items that are brought up under item 1 for public comment, but it provides an opportunity for a public forum. The public is given an opportunity at this time to address City Council issues not listed on the agenda. We do have an item on the agenda related to Bright Park, and that Bright Park agenda item is under the consent calendar. So if anybody's interested in speaking about Bright Park, if you could please list the consent agenda item number and not speak under public comment for that. Because I will ask you to pause and then wait until public comment if you do come up to speak on that item. We do ask that anyone wishing to address the council on this or any other item this evening to please fill out the request to speak card and return it to the clerk. And we accept the request to speak cards up to the conclusion of the reading of the staff report on any particular agenda item. Once the staff report has been read and we open the item up for public comment, the clerk will announce your name for you to walk to the podium to speak. Now, in front of the clerk, there is a timer to ensure that everyone has a chance to be heard. And we ask that all comments be limited to 3 minutes. Also, in front of the clerk is an analog flip chart, which indicates which agenda item the council is currently considering. We also recognize that for some, speaking in public can cause anxiety, so we request that there is no applause, boos, catcalls, or other demonstrations. Chief. Or other demonstrations. Furthermore, so that we may maintain a civil discourse here in the chambers, we ask that those in attendance and those who address the City Council abide by the code of conduct, posted and not speak in loud, threatening, offensive, abusive, or other disrespectful language that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. So now this brings us to item 1, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the council. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Guy Stevenson.
Stephen.
Madam Mayor, City Council members, I had an interesting conversation with about 3 or 4 people that come here to your City Council meeting, and they stepped to me and they said, "Guy, are you about regulations?" And I said, "Yeah, I am, as a matter of fact." And I think you know where I'm going with this, is that if any of the city workers here don't like the idea that I'm bringing it up, that's too bad. I'm not going to stop. And you know what it has to do with? It has to do with the food vendors here in West Sac that don't have licenses, don't have the health department clear them, and they have to follow the rules. And if they're not going to follow the rules, then why do any of these people that own restaurants and own businesses, why do they have to get licenses and stuff? So I asked one of my buddies, who's called Bay Area Accountability. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube. And I said, well, this is what we'll do. If they don't want to listen, then what I'm going to do is I want you to go around and record these people, and I want you to put it online. And that's what he's going to do, because it's obvious that when you come in here and you speak, some people up here might listen to you, other people do not. So, you know, they just look at the ceiling, or they just put their ears and close them and just say, "I'm not going to listen to that guy." Well, that's fine. Don't listen to me. I don't want you. But when you see you popping up on YouTube about something and you're not doing it because of regulations that you don't want to follow, then that's fine. And the other thing is I was going to bring up is the issue of people signing in when they come in this building. That is a Brown Act violation. The only time that a person's supposed to give them your name is when they fill out one of those cards. Coming into this building is a Brown Act violation. If you want to check it out, you can. And so I'm about regulation and I'm about the law. I mean, if you guys have a problem with that, I'm sorry, but that's just the way I am. I took a lot of orders in the military, and they're about regulations under the DOD. And if you don't do something in the military, guess what? They're going to write you up, and they're going to make you look bad. So, and I'm not trying to make any of you people look bad. If you're not going to make these people enforce these regulations, then I'm going to put it all over YouTube. That's plain and simple. And I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to make threats. I'm just telling you what I'm gonna do. You know, we already did it in Colusa County, but Colusa County has a little bit of a tendency to do what they're supposed to do. Thank
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Mark Reyes.
We have a packet of. Mr. Reyes.
God, I'm missing my state. There it is. Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Hello. I take it that each member present has received an email with an additional statement that I trust has been read with more detailed description of the situation. Is that correct? Email. You got that? Excellent. Okay. I'm here tonight asking for your help to put a stop to an order and a threat of fines that I received demanding that I tear down a carport structure that was built to cover my parked motorhome. Now, it's my understanding that I just happen to be the unlucky one that lives next to or near an habitual complainer. I'm taking this act very personally. I mean, how else should I take it, since there are numerous similar structures in the local area that fall into the setback ordinance in question, as you can see looking at the pictures that are provided in the folder. These are just some of the residents throughout the city of West Sacramento that don't have the luxury or capability to park their vehicles in a covered garage. It's the driveways where they park their vehicles, and it's our driveways where the structures must be located. Most of these carport structures are available for purchase at a local hardware store. It's a fact that they are a growing and popular choice for relief from the elements that are diminishing the value of our assets. Councilmember Norma Alcala has agreed and voiced the fact, stating that it's an unfair situation and that maybe the ordinance in question should be reviewed and possibly rewritten and amended with the consideration of these particular structures. We are living in an extremely harsh environment that is only going to produce the need for more of these shade-providing structures to be built throughout our area. Please help me to put a stop to having my carport torn down and the threat of this outrageous fines proposed by your Community Development Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Misty Drew.
Hello. I'm here tonight in support of Mark Reyes. I just want to speak on and just to support him and his wife Gloria because they own a beautiful property. They're in our city, they're residents here. Mark is a military veteran and they take very good care of their property, and what's being done to them is really unfair. You know, they are dealing with a crazy neighbor who likes to complain, and I'm sure that everybody's had to deal with crazy neighbors from time to time. And when you go around and you look at different houses in the city, I seriously doubt you're going to find somebody who keeps, you know, their yards as beautiful as Mark and Gloria do. You know, they take very, very good care. And it's somebody that when you look at their house, it's people that we're proud to have in our city. Their house is not an eyesore. And I'm just, you know, I'm coming here to support them, to ask, you know, that you guys take a second, you know, give them a chance to, you know, keep their structure up. It's not in anybody's way. It's not obstructing anybody's view. And just to support them in what they're doing and make sure that they're treated fairly in our city.
Thank you, Mr.
Maria Grijalva.
Good evening, council members. I was just going to comment that I was driving down Michigan Boulevard. I live on Michigan Boulevard, and I saw this RV cover and this nice covered RV, and I was like, wow, that is super nice and super brand new. And I was admiring it as I was going down Michigan Boulevard. So I didn't know that that's Mark, and I didn't know that he was going to come today. And so I'm here to compliment on how nice it looks. It's really, really nice. I actually have a barn for a RV the same size, and mine is rather old, it's wooden. And so I wanted to compliment this family for such a beautiful RV cover. The purpose of today that I'm here is to make public comment and to bring public comment regarding district elections. And 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, my attorney won the first case ever enforcing the Fair Maps Act that prohibited splitting neighborhoods. I'm sure everybody remembers this. And so we created a district giving a voice to the long-neglected Broderick Bright neighborhood. And Scott Rafferty actually saved the city almost $10,000 by getting a court order that prevented an unnecessary ballot question. And the only purpose of that ballot would have been to polarize the 2022 elections against Latinos. So yet, this attorney has yet to be paid as required by law, and all of us in the city are benefiting. And 2 years ago, we obtained and found out from public records that our city attorney has made at least $100,000 on billable hours. And those billable hours are still continuing today because right now, our city of West Sacramento is going to file an appeal, and it does not make sense. And so it's time to update the estimate of the amount wasted in this futile vendetta. So please recognize that my attorney, Mr. Scott Rafferty, achieved a permanent reform for our city that benefits everyone, and we really need to pay him, and we really need a new city attorney. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Grijalva.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
All right. Now that don't have any more requests to speak, we have 3 presentations under the city manager's office, and I'm going to be moving around items 2, 3, and 4, and bring up item number 4 first, which Councilmember Alcala will be taking up the Child Abuse Prevention Month. Geneva Lahaif, the Executive Director of Yolo County Children's Alliance, will be the recipient. Councilmember Alcala.
Thank you. Geneva, are you? Thank you. Please come up. Good to see you. Going to read the resolution, and we'd love for you to make.
You can raise up.
Oh. All right, I don't want to mess it up.
Oh, it's okay. Someone can help. Thanks. Thank you. The proclamation of the City Council, City of West Sacramento, recognizing April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas child abuse and neglect continue to pose serious threats to our nation's children, and whereas April is dedicated to raising awareness and preventing child abuse and neglect, each year communities join Child Abuse Prevention Month to promote prevention and support families. And whereas in 2024, Yolo County Child Welfare Services investigated allegations of abuse or neglect involving 1,033 children, with 124 entering foster care. Black children ages 0 to 5, though only 2.5% of child population accounted for 10.5 of these entries, emphasizing the need to focus prevention efforts. And whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is a collective responsibility that requires community-wide effort, this year's CAP month theme, It Takes a Village, reflects the African proverb that emphasizes the importance of community involvement in raising children. Research shows that strong, supportive relationships can serve as a protective factor against childhood trauma. Yolo County Child Abuse Prevention Council, CAPC, recognizes that no one can do it alone. And whereas the CAPC of Yolo County and Yolo County Children's Alliance program coordinates the community's efforts to prevent and respond to child abuse and neglect, and has members from Child Welfare Services, the criminal justice system, prevention and treatment services, and the larger community. And whereas West Sacramento residents are encouraged to support child abuse prevention efforts by participating in local activities and initiatives that promote strong, healthy families. The It Takes a Village campaign reminds us all that building safe, stable, and nurturing environments for children requires action from every member of our community. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of West Sacramento hereby recognizes the month of April 2025 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, proclaimed this 9th day of April 2025.
Thank you, Councilmember Akala. Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Thank you all for having me here. I'm honored to represent the Yolo County Child Abuse Prevention Council, a program of Yolo County Children's Alliance. Thank you for standing with us in support of children and families and for making their well-being a priority in your work and your decision-making. The mission of the Child Abuse Prevention Council is clear: to eliminate child abuse and neglect and to address the adversity it causes by strengthening families and communities. So everything you do here is child abuse prevention, so thank you. Like Councilmember Akala stated, in 2024, and this is data directly from our Child Welfare Services Department in Yolo County, Child Welfare Services responded to reports involving over 1,000 children. While not all of these cases were substantiated, 124 children entered foster care last year. This represents a slight decrease from 2023, which is really good. But disparities still remains. So for example, Black children ages 0 to 5 make up just 2.5% of the county's child population, yet they represent 10.5% of foster care entries. Addressing these disparities continue to be a top priority for us. We are committed to implementing culturally responsive strategies that protect vulnerable children and help families thrive. So since April is Child Abuse Prevention Month this year, all the Child Abuse Prevention Council in Northern California came together under the theme, It Takes a Village, highlighting the power of community in protecting children and supporting their well-being. So the reason why we chose the theme, It Takes a Village, research shows that strong social connections are one of the most effective ways to prevent child abuse and neglect. Whether it's a teacher, neighbor, or mentor, every caring adult can make a difference in a child's life. This year's campaign is focused on raising awareness and inspiring collective actions through a series of key initiatives. So on April 25th, Pinwheel Gardens will bloom across the county as a symbol of hope and advocacy for child well-being. That day holds a very special significance. It is the day of it's Children's Memorial Flag Day, which is observed on the fourth Friday of April since 1997. So hosting a Pinwheel Garden at your home, school, agency, or business is a powerful way to show how positive connection can shape a child's future. Each Pinwheel represents the bright and healthy childhood every child deserves. We invite you to also join the Community Art Project. So all of this information, by the way, is on our website at www.yolokids.org. We also invite you to attend an event at the Family Resource Center located in Brighton Broderick area at Alice Norman. There will be an event honoring child abuse prevention, and of course, we'll send all of those events invitation. Again, thank you for your commitment to this vital cause. Together, we can ensure every child grows up feeling safe, valued, and supported. Thank you again.
Thank you. We'll go down and take a photo with you.
Yes, please.
Next up is a proclamation from the City of West Sacramento recognizing April 6th through 12th as National Library Week. And we have a couple, I don't know how many, raise your hand, how many people are here to receive that? Okay. Well, I have two names, and you can include the last one when you come on up to the podium, please. Alex Hirsch, West Sacramento Friends of the Library President, and Krista Panariato, Yolo County Library Regional Manager. While I'm reading this, if you can come on up, that'll be great, all 3 or 4 of you. Whereas the Yolo County Library sparks creativity and inspires lifelong learning by serving as a vibrant community hub that provides free and equitable access to books, digital tools, and innovative programming, ensuring all individuals, regardless of background, have the resources to learn, connect, and thrive. And whereas the Arthur F. Turner Community Library hosted free performances by the Sacramento Philharmonic and Opera Story Times with the Sacramento Ballet and UC Davis Princess Pals and cultural celebrations throughout the year. Whereas Yolo County Library partners with Washington Unified School District, local businesses, and community organizations to maximize resources, increase efficiency, and expand essential services, strengthening the city as a whole. And whereas Yolo County Library collaborated with Three Sisters Garden to distribute free locally grown produce, tote bags, and more than 300 books to Riverbank Elementary summer school students as part of the California State Library funded pop-up libraries at summer lunch sites program. And whereas the Yolo County Library empowers job seekers, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners through access of training, tools, and opportunities that support career growth and economic success. And whereas the Arthur F. Turner Community Library staff offer English and bilingual story times, summer reading programs to inspire lifelong reading and protect the right to read, think, and explore freely without censorship, upholding intellectual freedom and free expression. And whereas librarians, library workers, and friends of the libraries across the country are joining together to celebrate National Library Week under the theme, Drawn to the Library. Now therefore be it proclaimed to the City of West Sacramento City Council hereby designates April 6th through 12th, 2025 as National Library Week, encouraging all residents to visit their library, explore its resources, and celebrate all the ways that the library draws us together as a community proclaimed today. And Mr. Hirsch and Panariato, I have to butcher your name, but if you have anybody would like to speak?
Thank you so much. I think Alex is going to speak on our.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mayor Guerrero and members of the City Council. As Krista shared, I have the pleasure to be the president of the West Sacramento Friends of the Library, and tonight I'm here with Krista from the Yolo County Library team and Satota, one of our incredible Westfall volunteers. And Westfall, for those who don't know, is a 100% volunteer, nonprofit organization dedicated to a singular mission, which is supporting our incredible Arthur F. Turner Community Library right here in West Sacramento. I know I share with many of you a love and deep affection for libraries and library staff and all that they do. For me, my story, I grew up a latchkey kid and would often go to the library on the way home walking from school to home and would spend hours there as a safe space doing homework and developing my love of reading and my love of learning. And I know, again, that that's a love that many of you share. You bring your children, your grandchildren to the library. You visited our library when you were a child in our community. And for all of us, we are lucky to have you sitting at the City Council dais. Here in West Sacramento, our library is a true community cultural center which everyone in the community supports. It is open to everyone, regardless of background, regardless of age, regardless of language. We offer so many programs from our library staff, whether it's children's programs like storytime reading, not just in English, but in Spanish and Russian as well. Whether it's teen programs like the Anime Club, adult programs like yoga at the library and book club. There are so many services provided by our library in West Sacramento. Other communities are not so lucky. Libraries in other communities are under attack, whether it's through censorship or through deprivation of funding. Those communities aren't as fortunate as we are here in West Sacramento. You know, the library offers programs such as meals during the summer when students are out of school. It offers summer reading programs. It offers lifelong learning programs. And just recently, unfortunately, the federal government cut funding that was guaranteed to the state library for local libraries to offer many of those programs. So now the state is no longer receiving $3 million of already budgeted, previously guaranteed money that would go to local libraries like ours in the community. So tonight, I ask the city and all the city council, share the support that I know you have with me for our library. Use your voice, use your platform, do everything you can to advocate for our library, share about the wonderful programs at our library, share about the work that we as the Friends of the Library do. Coming up soon, we have our first book sale of the year on Saturday, April 19th. I invite all the council members to come. We're participating in the Big Day of Giving, the single largest 24-hour fundraiser in the region for nonprofit organizations. Please help us share that message. Please help support our library, and please make it so that everyone knows West Sacramento is not just the baseball side of the river, but the library side of the river, where we can all be proud of our library, West Sac proud. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Okay, can we go down and take a photo? Right, now next, we have a presentation from the Sacramento Area Council of Government, a 2025 blueprint presentation by Mr. James Corliss, the Executive Director. Looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Mayor, are you okay if I say a couple things before to tee this up? Yeah, okay, great, yes. All right, perfect. So thank you so much, Director Corliss, for being here. And I wanted to make sure that I talked about the importance of SACOG and our regional relationship, and speak to the fact that when we step back and we think of beyond the borders that are West Sacramento, when we are thinking regionally, we have the opportunity to create something that's actually truly very powerful. We get to build a vibrant, connected community where families can thrive and where opportunity isn't just limited to where we live, but where our children can inherit a healthier, stronger, and more sustainable future. However, you guys have heard me actually talk, and definitely my colleagues have heard me talk about the fact that we are faced with a fiscal cliff when it comes to transportation, not just here in Yolo County, but actually regionally. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat the fact that we are going to be facing some tough realities when it comes to transportation, and specifically transportation funding in this region. However, we can't build everything we dream up. We can be smart about what we are putting our funds and our energy towards. We can be strategic, and we can invest in what matters most, not only, again, here in West Sacramento, but regionally. And that's exactly what SACOG does, and that's what their purpose is. This organization is a vital voice for our region. It lifts up our shared priorities. It makes sure we're heard at the state and federal level. And when we come together, when we speak with one voice, we become more competitive for funding that we need, again, not just in West Sacramento, but regionally to bring our vision to life. And so I wanted to make sure to share that as you tee up the blueprint, because it's our honor to have you here as a champion for our region. So thank you.
So much, Mayor Guerrero, Councilmember Early, council members. James Corliss, Executive Director of the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. Thanks so much for that introduction. I'm really giving you an update on our long-range plan tonight, the region's long-range plan.
Thank you.
Across all 6 counties and 22 cities, looking out to the year 2050. So this is the plan that knits together transportation, infrastructure, housing, jobs. And as Councilmember Early said, without this plan, we really are not going to be competitive for state grants, for federal grants. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an update. We are, as I know you all know, you've played an instrumental role, frankly, in SACOG for a long time now with the Council of Government. So all 22 cities and 6 counties sit around our board table, as you know, twice a month. We cover this much area from Davis to the Sacramento Delta to the Tahoe Rim to Yuba City, Marysville, and have every single local government at the table is kind of remarkable. It's very unique. So we started the long-range plan, and we really started 2 years ago, and we're kind of in the home stretch here. But we started it based on a framework of a triple bottom line, which is how do we maximize equity, social and racial equity? How do we make sure we are doubling down on economic prosperity and tradable growth sectors? And how do we have a sustainable environment, clean air, and clean water? We've done a lot more outreach in this plan than we have literally ever done before in any long-range plan. We've done every kind of outreach you can imagine, from pop-up workshops to polling to focus groups, and we've learned a lot through all of that outreach. We've distilled that down into about 7 different themes, and I'll name a few here. One of the biggest things we heard is housing. So when we go out and we surveyed and polled on a transportation plan and challenges the region faces, one of the first things that we hear back is, can my kids afford to live here? Can my grandchildren afford to live here? We're becoming a fast-growing region, but we actually have not been keeping pace with the amount of housing and affordable housing that we need to develop. But people also care a lot about things like safe and convenient transportation options, preserving open space, and our amazing productive agriculture, creating complete communities where you can walk, you can bike, kids can get to school safely. So these themes are not necessarily new, but they are the 7 major things that we really heard loud and clear. And just from one of the focus groups, which is sort of rings true, Councilmember Early said about funding, one of the funding cliffs that we face is public transportation funding. So we have to get smart and rally together as a region to figure out how we're going to make sure we have enough money to run our trains, our buses, our microtransit. But this was something we heard over and over again from all of our outreach is people want options, they want choices, they want the ability to get around without a car at all life stages. A little bit of the results from our survey. As I mentioned, housing. This was the survey that we actually we worked with community-based nonprofits to get this survey out into the hands of a lot of their partners and their members. And as I said, affordable housing, the #1 issue in the region, according to the survey. crime and public safety, a lack of transportation choices, and rising traffic congestion. So we've learned a lot too. This plan gets very technical. It's very detailed. We have to model out the future growth and the projection for the region. We've done pretty well on that, by the way. Going back to our plans from the turn of the century, we forecast that this region would be at about 2.7 million people. Right now, we're about 2.6, but we do project we're going to grow by another 600,000 people by 2050. Our growth rate, and you may feel this every day if you're on the freeways or anywhere, our regional growth rate across the 6 counties is higher than the statewide growth rate as a percentage and higher than the national growth rate. In fact, by the 2020 census, we were the fastest growing metropolitan region in all of California. And here in West Sacramento, that means that while our region will grow by 600,000 people and 260,000 jobs, and so we'll need 278,000 housing units over the next 25 years, it does mean that West Sacramento is also going to grow. So we have to do all the balancing of infrastructure and transportation and quality of life and schools and everything else that you know about and that you work on every day. We project another 31,000 people here in West Sacramento in the city by the year 2050. Hopefully 15,000 more jobs, because their economic base is key, which will require nearly 16,000 more housing units. The good news is you and your staff are doing a lot of planning, and you have a lot of foresight, and you have a regional partner that's here to help. Across the region, that growth is really what we like to think of sort of as a balanced portfolio. A third of that future growth, those 278,000 housing units, will be in infill areas, areas close to downtowns and commercial corridors, what we call centers and corridors. Another third of that growth will be in building out our existing urbanized footprint, our general plans across our cities. And about 1/3 of that growth will actually be in the light blue on this map, which are new growth areas, which are new developing areas in Sacramento County, here in Yolo County, in West Sacramento, in Sutter County, and Yuba County. About 1/3 of that in those new growth areas. Talking a little bit about transportation. Obviously, this is a key piece here for the city of West Sacramento. There's a number of bridge crossings that you are all involved in and that we are helping out as your partner. It's the I Street Bridge, the Broadway Bridge, and the Channel as well. So all of these things are really important. Also, things including YOLO TD and YOLO Bus, as well as your microtransit, Capitol Corridor, and making sure that we get good connections by rail to the Bay Area and east, and of course our trail network here. On transportation, while we're not going to have as much money as we hope, we still need to be very competitive for state and federal grants. But another big theme we heard, actually when we did our outreach, was safety. So a lot of the public and the survey responses we got back was around traffic safety and not feeling safe, whether you're walking or biking or driving, and the numbers bear that out. Actually, our fatalities and injuries from transportation-related accidents are going up in this region faster than other regions in California. So the public knows that. They are wanting safer streets, and to feel safer, they're wanting us to prioritize fixing our existing infrastructure that's falling into disrepair, and some lower cost and quicker projects. So I mentioned we're in the home stretch of the plan. We're calling the 2025 Blueprint. We are going to release a public draft in May, along with an EIR for public review. That'll be out for 60 days. It'll come back at the end of July. Our board will review a final draft plan, and then we will hopefully adopt and certify the EIR this November at the end of the year. And just a couple of other things I want to mention. We don't just do a plan to have a plan and to have it sit on a shelf or the internet website. We want to do a plan so we can implement it. We are very proud of the programs that we've developed and created with you and your staff and cities and counties across the region. One is Green Means Go. When we've taken the state mandates to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, we've translated that into an economic development and housing program. We've worked with your staff to identify areas where we can get resources from the state to fund infrastructure to enable more economic development. We call that program Green Means Go. It took us 3 years, but we won $600 million statewide and $34 million for this region. We have a trails program. We have a plan to connect every corner of this region with paved biking and walking trails. And if we can connect all the awesome trails that already exist, a lot of the work that you're doing here in West Sacramento, we can literally have a 1,000-mile network of paved walking and biking trails that will feel safe for everybody, regardless of age or ability. And finally, this in the bottom left, I just want to mention, we are in a very formal MOU and working relationship with the Bay Area, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and San Joaquin County. We have a dozen projects we call the mega region. And those projects, including projects like the Yolo Causeway, the Capitol Corridor, bringing rail service up here from the Tri-Valley and the San Joaquin Valley up that will connect to the airport and someday to Chico. Those are all projects that we are working on together across the 16-county Northern California mega region. So I'm going to end on this. We're a 6-county region. We have a bipartisan delegation in the state capitol. We have a bipartisan delegation in Congress. And it is more important than ever for us to be a team across all 6 counties to work together, going back to DC for trips to DC, working with our members of Congress back here at home, working with our state delegation in the Capitol to make sure that they understand that we're investment ready, that we're growing fast, but we have great plans and we are poised for success. I want to say one more thing about the mega region, by the way, and hats off to the West Sacramento Athletics, as I understand the Broderick Athletics.
Thank you.
The MLB commissioners, you probably know, Mayor, came out of a meeting here about a month ago and said, I thought this was just a couple of cities of 600,000 people. I now understand this is a mega region of 11 million, right? So if we can put ourselves on that radar screen, we got nowhere to go but up. So this is our plan, and look, guess what? If you're a team, you look good in purple. See?
I like it.
So, in all honesty, we do have to be a team. We got to work across partisan divide. We got to work across geographic divides. We got to work across our counties. I'm one of the few agencies that really represents across along the Metro Chamber and GSAC, all 6 counties. So we can't do it alone. We got to do it together. And with this plan, we think we'll be in really good shape to compete for state and federal funding. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Corliss. Greatly appreciate you taking the time to come out and present to us what the status of the 2025 blueprint is. I know a lot of work, and your team is incredible. They go into a lot of detail and educate all the regions when it comes time for us to apply for these grant funds that do come down the federal and state level. I know it's been a hard, challenging as far as what we are going to get at the federal level. State level is turning like that day by day, depending on what's happening. I did want to say, though, I didn't realize you wanted to speak. And as a general rule, just for governance sake, you can let me know in advance.
Of course, and I appreciate you allowing that and indulge.
But yeah, I just didn't know what the presentation was going to be and if it was going to be aligned, only because when we do speak as a council, it'll be related to what is presented. And so that's the turnaround, is to do it after. And if you'd like to share any additional comments, that would be great.
Thank you. I probably will.
And at this time, I wanted to open it up to council to see if they had any questions. Comment? Sure. Member Orozco.
For coming back in front of our council. I've heard you speak on multiple occasions in your leadership volumes. As the longest serving woman on this council, I gotta say, I've seen your presentation in the past, and under the leadership of Christopher Balden and Chris Ledesma, who both took very big roles as far as making sure that West Sacramento was represented in these conversations about how it is that we interconnect in the region with our transportation goals and our environmental goals and our blueprint, our footprint in this. I gotta say, it's exciting to see all the progress. And of course, we're in a very difficult time with acknowledging that. But I am grateful that we do have the leadership of my colleague, Dr. Hurley, that's to speak for our city now. And I'm really proud and thankful and grateful for the investment that SACOG made. There are projects that people don't even know that we enjoy every single day that were made possible because SACOG took an eye over West Sacramento. And one that's underway currently, that's going to affect a lot of children here in West Sacramento who get to enjoy an pass from one side of the city that has traditionally been split in half by a highway. And my son plays local soccer. He has a colleague that we would pick up to take soccer, but he lives on the other side of the freeway and couldn't make it just soccer practice without getting in a car and driving along the road. But because of these investments, we're talking about road and traffic calming measures, we're talking about bikeable and walkable communities where there's an energy that becomes contagious, and we become a healthier community with cleaner air and an ability to really utilize the city streets for different purposes other than honking our horns and running our vehicles on the fuel that powers them. And so I just want to say that, you know, as we look forward to the vision of the city and our aging infrastructure and how it is that we find ways of reinvesting in order to make the city brighter and safer and just ready for our future, I look to SACOG and I say, you know what, thank you for reinvesting in a community that had been traditionally neglected. And we were just the passerby. People would want to get to Sacramento or Davis or other bigger cities and pass through West Sacramento without stopping. But now we are a destination and we can only get better with help. So thank you so much for bringing the presentation before us, but also for looking at our city for the way and making such tremendous investments.
And Councilmember Roscoe, I would say, I also want to thank your staff because a lot of the investments that you just mentioned are competitive grants. They write amazing applications. They work really well with us. They are a professional team, right? And they really have been incredible at drawing down those. There's not a guarantee of that money coming to West Sacramento. That is partly because you've got a very, very good staff who knows how to write those grant applications and really, you know, make the case.
I would agree.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I look at this picture in regards to teamwork, and I see not only the entire region reflected here, but many of my colleagues from the Yolo Transportation District, from Winters, from Woodland, from Davis, our county supervisor, Oscar Villegas, and it really is a team effort. And what you touched on, Councilmember Orozco, in regards to, I think, you are behind, SACOG is behind the scenes for the entire region, helping to lift us up, lift the entire community up. And when you say go A's, the Bridge District would not be what it is had it not been funded by SACOG. And in partnership with many of the dollars that went to revitalizing that area, making it what it is today, is because of those dollars. And I think it's really important for us to really acknowledge and realize how important these partnerships are. And I absolutely agree with you. I'm on weekly with our transportation department, and they're always downloading all of the grants that they are applying for, not only by West Sac with other opportunities, but also with you all. And we'll talk more when I report out later on our transportation committee. But we had, I think, a difficult conversation this past week in regards to our fiscal cliff and what that looks like and the distribution of dollars for SAC-RT, for YOLO transportation, for just the entire region, and what we're really needing to face together. And one of the things that Director Corliss, you mentioned was what you hope the vision will be for all of these different transportation departments or districts coming together through SACOG is us trying to think and envision and innovate of what is possible if we simply work together, and that we don't work in these cylinders of excellence by ourselves, hoping, right, that it will get better. We are looking, YTD here in Yolo County, Yolo Transportation District is looking at a fiscal cliff of several million. SAC-RT is looking at a fiscal cliff of 40 to 60 million. And again, that doesn't just impact them, it also impacts our West Sacramento residents who rely, right, on those transportation. We are a logistical hub here in West Sacramento. And so I just can't emphasize enough how much of an honor it is to be a part of SACOG, how much of an honor it is to work with you all, and how appreciative I am for our own staff and working hard with you to realize the possibilities. So thank you.
Any other council members? Okay. Well, Mr. Corliss, so yes, working with you on the SACOG board, I also appreciate what you've accomplished in, just coordinating feedback from the region on DEI, and some of what happened over the years in the equity gap, and trying to understand a little more, how is that integrated in the blueprint?
Yeah, well, we start with the triple bottom line, as I said. We've actually got a really cool program that we've just been standing up with our staff called Mobility Zones. This is actually going to come to our board. It's in front of our board next week for information, then adoption. And here's a great example, I think, right? What we don't want to do for any program across these very diverse 6 counties, have sort of copy and paste, like a one size fits all, right? Mm-hmm. That's true for equity. It's true for a lot of things. So we've had these councils get together in every county and define, how do you define disparities and sort of disadvantage? Is it income? Is it age? Is it ability? Is it race, ethnicity? Is it English as a second language? What are those? And every county defines those differently, right? Depending on where you are. Foothills versus the flatlands versus rural versus urban, suburban. We've taken those value sets, we provided data to those different councils by county, and up pops a map of neighborhoods and census tracts that looks different every place. And on those, we've kind of layered where we have transportation challenges, and thus pop up what we call our mobility zones. Think of it as sort of transportation disadvantaged. The map is out. You have one right here in Sacramento, West Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And so those are going to be in the plan, and those are going to be areas in which we think we'll be able to try to pull down at least state dollars, because as I'm sure you know, at the federal level right now, actually the way in which the feds actually just recently have completely done a shift on equities actually around opportunity zones and areas of persistent poverty. It's a slightly different screen, but it actually looks like it is still going to be a screen that's used, so we're still trying to understand what that means. So it will be in the plan in terms of some of the emphasis areas and the priority geographies.
Oh, it's helpful. Only in that I'm concerned in the work we've accomplished, and at the federal level, when we were drawing down that funding, we did some, we accomplished more in the Sacramento Avenue area, Broderick and Bright, than we ever had, and that's thanks to the federal funding that we were. I do want to thank Caltrans real quick, because they hustled and got our last grant, Green Means Go grant, that has funding for West Sacramento, signed on, I think it was January the 15th. Okay. And so we got that signed. It's obligated. So we try to make sure that we got an obligation for those dollars. In taking a look at the future of federal transportation funding, I know it's going to be hard. We're like trying to, figure out what the planning is in the future, and we're going to cap and planning. And we have some projects in place, the I Street Bridge, that's pretty significant. We're looking at the Enterprise Bridge, working together with you to plan for that. It'll help West Sacramento. One of the challenges I have in my mind is the impact of that could have on the port, and making sure that conversation, with the port, if we take a look at a bridge that doesn't take out a port, for example, that we take a look at a plan and a model that protects, the port of West Sacramento. And I know that, SACOG is a part of those discussions in some way or another when it comes to funding sources like that. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of my position on that. Sure. And my interest to preserve the port as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I know that a fixed span bridge is one of those choices, but that choice will close a port. And I don't know why that's completely in there, but I'd like to preserve it and have focus on the options to keep the port open. Mm-hmm. In taking a look at a blueprint and some of the federal and state dollars that are going away, how do you foresee being able to implement that with the limited funding that we are noticing today?
Well, it's going to be challenging. I think the first thing we got to do is we have to make ourselves present back in DC. While I think we've seen a lot over the last 2 months in terms of cuts and program cuts, I do believe that transportation is something that actually has, regardless of the state, regardless of the district, and how they're represented in Congress, has a lot of support back in DC. So the first thing I think we have to do is make sure that they're for the transportation program federally, which will get reauthorized by next summer. That's the schedule anyway. They're usually late. That we really build a big coalition again. That's why the 6 county region is important, to make sure we don't have cuts that are long-term to transportation. I think what we'll see is fewer competitive grants nationally and more formula money. I worry a lot that federal transit funding is definitely at risk. And so we have to make sure, again, that all the transit operators, YOLO TD, Sacramento Regional Transit, Yuba Sutter Transit, our associations, right, are very present, and we have frequent visits and communication with our congressional representatives. I think we have a shot at maintaining status quo on federal transportation. That would be a victory.
Just to the extent that even through the U.S. Conference of Mayors, that I am informed. I know we have a representative, but I don't always feel informed. I don't always am aware of everything that's happening in ways at the federal level here. So we continue to push for answers administratively here. It's not you. Administratively here. What is that list that we can be targeted for? What is the criteria? Is it a DEI thing that we need to take a look at that makes us more vulnerable? And if there's a comparable list that you can share with us on where are our vulnerabilities, where do we need to be vigilant, where do we need to pivot quickly? I hear this cliff we've known about though for a bit of time. This has been ongoing, yet we planned Measure O without any understanding that this should have been taken into consideration, where we should be at this point, thinking about the importance, because when you decided to support us with VIA, it was a game changer for West Sacramento, for our lower income populations. It helps them with their first and last mile to get to work. It opened up a lot of doors for our disabled and older adult population to be able to get to grocery stores. Noticing, in connecting with VIA, that program itself, thanks to your involvement and, Councilmember Ledesma, who was championing. I wasn't a fan in the beginning because I saw it as a replacement to our Yolo County Transit. But at the same time, there was a gap of people that we fully didn't understand, that now we know who they are as a result of VIA. And now I'm a big champion and proponent and go on, on national, presentations with them to continue to push for the, VIA expansion in other jurisdictions, explaining to them what I've learned along the way, that there are people that may not utilize our buses because it's not as convenient to get to work or to get to, school or to get to a grocery store. And today it's going to be a lot harder for those people to be able to pay for gas money. And VIA may be the choice to survive, to get to where they need to go to get to a doctor's appointment. That's what we established with VIA, to get over to across the bridge, to get over to their medical appointments. So for me, it's, being that creativity on your part, being open-minded and trying something new, and took the risk, and now, all of us are on board, and we're funding it with other creative funding sources. That's what I like to see, for us to be able to partner with you with Yolo County Transit. I don't like to hear just cliffs and no solutions. I like to hear solutions. I'd like to hear it from you if you have to email me directly. I don't want to wait for a presentation. I'd like to learn about it in advance. So if there's information that I can have, so that if I have to go with my colleagues at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I have a lot of mayors who are from California, maybe struggling, and we can build a caucus to advocate for these things at the federal level. It would be very helpful. Sure. And including Kevin McCarty, who attends there as well. So to the extent that we can build that partnership, as we go multiple times back to DC, as we are advocating on a regular basis, meeting, and I think a lot of us, mayors, pretty much have a consensus that some of these cuts are going to be detrimental and painful to our community. We are on the front lines as cities, and we need as much intel and understanding of these impacts as much as possible early on. And any data that you can provide for us, any ways to continue to push and encourage other mayors in more conservative places where they may not feel the vulnerability but can partner with us, that would be very much appreciated.
Always happy to share everything we have. However, that is the best way to share that, right? I know
Yes.
the LOTD is doing some workshops on funding and the fiscal cliff. You know, I would invite, maybe there's a workshop to be had with the council
That'd be a
on
good
transit
idea.
funding and the future of funding, and also how you work with SAC-RT, you know, doing it across the river and the VIA, sort of what sustainable funding for VIA look like long-term. Happy to share any and all ideas, absolutely.
Well, and I think the important thing, because you're absolutely right, Mayor, that, and we've said the same thing, right, at our SACOG meetings, that simply saying this fiscal cliff that's coming isn't enough. And so you guys actually right now, SACOG staff, are working to put together a plan for this. Do you want to just speak to that a little bit, since you have the mayor's attention right now?
And you may know this, Mayor, too. SB 125 was the budget, the state budget that really shored up transit operators a couple of years ago, $5 billion statewide. It basically bought us time, and it bought us time to do what, though, right? So actually, we all have to create sort of a financial sustainability plan with the operators. We're working on that. We just procured a contractor, a consultant. So there'll be some really good, I think, information coming up in the next few months. We'd be happy to share with you.
That'll be great. Thank you.
And the last thing I would add to that, for YTD, right now I am chair, and that was one of the things that luckily my colleagues also agreed upon, is putting together these workshops to address, by the time SB 125 is fully phasing out, not relying on that, having a plan. And so what I can also make sure to do is that Autumn, the executive director for YTD, invites all of my colleagues to those workshops. And so hopefully you guys have an opportunity to go, because I do think they're going to be very educational and helpful.
Right, I do think these workshops and attendance is important among all of us as it relates to what's happening, especially here in West Sacramento. And, you know, like the Clarksburg Trail, you know, some of the residents I'm hearing from those areas, and they're not West Sacramento, by the way, they're the Yolo County side, where I'm hearing complaints about that trail and how it is impacting their property. So it's the landowners and the concerns about that. But I just hear about it peripherally. It's not something I'm directly, you know, fully knowledgeable of. But I just want to make sure that when we do outreach, that the locals are engaged. I know we have that challenge here as well, trying to engage people who aren't directly, like in social media, you know, just being able to pick up on these things. As I've learned, you know, I'll tell you, in canvassing directly with the residents and sharing with them, you know, about what's happening in elections, a good percentage are not tracking social media. People overestimate the impact and the reach it has. It doesn't reach people as people think it does. So I think I don't know if it's a West Sacramento thing, especially in the north. And I don't know if it's a digital divide or exactly what that is, but there are some big gaps. And if you're reaching out, that's the one way. We have to figure out other ways when you're doing that. More than happy to brainstorm, you know, more creative and impactful ways.
Sure.
Oh, with that, no other comments? Thank you so much for coming,
Thank you.
James. I appreciate it. Next is our consent agenda items 5 through 13. Is there any request to remove an item?
Yeah, 7, 9, and 13 for me.
Anybody else? All right, we'll open up before, is it a whole presentation you're looking for, any of these? A couple questions. If not, we can pull those and then vote on those separately, and is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so with minus 7, 9, and 13, I will accept a motion to move the rest of the item.
Second.
Okay, wait a minute. Who did first?
Well, it was at the same time, yeah.
Okay.
I'll take a second.
Okay, Councilmember Orozco moved, and Councilmember, I'll call a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
We did have a request to speak on item 10. Did you want to
Oh,
hear the?
10.
Did you
Yes,
want to
why
hear
don't
the
we do
comment
that?
before the vote was taken?
Please, thank you. And that's the,
Member Goddard?
is that only one person here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good evening. I've submitted an email objection to the approval of this item. As I read through it, realizing that it's fraught with error. This is an appendix of West Sacramento to be attached to the Yolo County Emergency Plan, as I understand it, and particularly new information on the risks associated with flood and emergency evacuation and levee breach are presented in the document. Reading it carefully, I see brand new language about the risk level. I also see inconsistent language that doesn't make any sense in accordance with that brand new language. For instance, the document includes statements that give our flood risk a high extreme vulnerability with a result of catastrophe. I haven't heard that language before, and the resultant property damage of upwards of $4 billion if we had a flood in this community, 10 times more than any other city in Yolo County. And still no emergency evacuation plan in this document or in the main document. Our emergency evacuation plan now shows colors in certain sections, but it shows no routes, particularly how to get around the same continuing choke points that any kind of a large transition of vehicles would be forced to gridlock over. We can't seem to get around the traffic issue for the new baseball field, let alone an emergency evacuation plan resultant particularly of a flood. In this document, it quotes WSAFCA, our flood control agency, further and again as saying that the city of West Sacramento continues to work toward FEMA 200-year flood protection certification by 2025. Over and over, the document states the same thing. Now, that's old. Everybody knows that's not the case. Even you have admitted that is not the case here. We have an extension to 2030 and then another one to 2040 because no one believes we can get 200-year FEMA flood certification by 2025, and yet it asserts that we are trying to do just that. So it's a state of wonderment that I'm in when I read that misrepresentation that this is going to go into the Yolo County Emergency Plan. The document's not correct. It needs to be updated and revised. Larger truth now known to the public is that this 200-year FEMA certification for flood risk is unlikely to ever be achieved. The certification would have to apply to every centimeter of 50 miles of circumference of levees, or lack of levees, that surround West Sacramento. Toting the amazing setback levee, or getting awards for it, does nothing to remedy the other 45 miles of vulnerability that remain in our levee system. Thus, the $1.2 trillion cost estimation to redo an inside ring of 50 miles of levee, since this levee can never be brought to that standard, having been built without standards, pushed up dirt by farmers long ago. You should not
Roger,
adopt this
can you wrap it
without
up,
fixing the document. Thank you.
This document has been thoroughly vetted, and it has been brought to us from very clear examination among the agencies here. And it's not something we're taking lightly. We have Mr. Brian Johnson and our Chief Benz. If you have anything further to add about the background about this document and how much work we've done to validate that that it is ripe for approval tonight.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Just to comment on some of the comments that Mr. Goddard said, if there's any inaccuracies, we'd like to know about it. You know, this document is a planning document. Number one intent is to paint the picture of the hazards that are in West Sacramento, mitigation strategies to fix them, but more importantly, approval by the federal government to be able to provide us that grant funding when it becomes available. This thing was planned over a 5-year period, something that we looked at in 2018. Could be inaccurate now, but when you're building something over the life, things change. So it's a living document. Anything that we approve today can be changed tomorrow and built upon for that next 5-year approval moving forward. I'd be happy to entertain any
Thank you so
inaccuracies that we
much.
can look at.
That's very helpful. I appreciate the clarification that it is a live document.
Correct.
And the importance of being able to acquire the grant as a result of approval tonight.
And for what it's worth, it's already been approved by FEMA, conditional to our adoption here. The county just needs one adoption from a member before it becomes overall approved.
As much as I appreciate a member from the public trying to point out flaws, I do think that it's important for us, and the urgency to get this approved tonight is important.
Point that I clarified. Could you please just tell us so that everyone understands what the multi-jurisdictional, how many
jurisdictions?
jurisdictions?
It's in the, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it's Yolo County's multi-jurisdictional document includes the major cities, Winters, Davis, Woodland, Housing, the county's Department of Housing. There's many others.
So others have.
That's correct. That's what the multi-jurisdictional nature of the document.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Very helpful background, and I appreciate all of your hard work and your institutional memory, Mr. Johnson, is incredible. It's why we get things accomplished, why we receive grants, and continue to improve and protect our city. It's thanks to you and those that work with you. So I'm really grateful for your hard work on this. So
I appreciate that. I want to extend gratitude to Brenna Howell, our Emergency Services Coordinator, that was lead on this. Did
Excellent.
most of the work.
Thank you so much.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just one suggestion. I believe what we're looking at here, the document was likely drafted prior to update to the SB 5 requirement 2040. So we would just want to note that in the approval of the document, what deadline under SB 5? Fairly simple change, just having to do with.
So you're asking for an amendment to the motion?
It doesn't need, it just needs to reflect that we're going to make.
It means to reflect that we can make a,
Yeah,
to
it's
those
in
that
like
made the
3
motion,
places.
Councilmember Rose, Paula, who made the motion. When else we need to make the motion again, we can do that. Make that adjustment. That's
With the
okay.
amendment?
So you can make the motion again, member, to approve those items minus 7, 9, and 13.
To approve those items, 7, 9, and 13.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hull? Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. These items are approved. Thank you. And now bring up item 7. Consideration and approval of Third Amendment commercial lease of police department facility for 1025 Triangle Court. Hey.
Hi, Fred Arnold here. I'm the city's real property manager, and be happy to answer any questions that you have. But by way of the report, this is the Third Amendment to the police department lease located at 1025 Triangle Court, and we're here to have those approved so they can go forward August 1st.
Councilmember Early has a question.
Hopefully it's a quick and easy question. I know that we continue to explore finding a new place to put our police department. And so I'm just curious how this lease amendment relates or is connected to the future of where our police department could or we would like.
So this is just a continuation of the existing facility at 1025. I've recently been engaged in the site selection process for the future police department location. This is a 5-year lease. At the rate these structures are awarded, selected, designed, you're right at about the point in 5 years that you would be ready to transition.
Perfect. It wasn't that easy.
That's just my personal, that's my personal professional opinion.
Yes.
Arnold, always professional.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was it. I just wanted to see how it related to the future. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are already about that. Thank you.
Next is item number 9, consideration of resolution 25-40, authorizing the submission of an application to the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank for financing Bright Park improvements and intent to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds. Councilmember Alcala has a question as well as Councilmember Early.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. I know this is really just to get approval to even just apply. I was curious, it might be in here and I just missed it. I really was trying to comb through though, what the potential interest rate would be. I know that no matter what, we are gonna have a funding gap for Bright Park. And so, I was curious of what we would need to fill the funding gap, what the interest would be, and sort of like what would be on top of that. I think the funding gap is something like 32 million. I think I'm just operating off my memory though. I don't think that's in here. Versus if we potentially applied for the full amount, what the interest would be on that full amount, kind of like upfronting as we waited for reimbursement. Is that, I know that's a lot of words.
Yeah, I believe the report mentions a funding gap right now of about 32 million.
Oh, awesome. That's good.
The infrastructure state revolving loan program revolving fund program through iBank offers up to 65 million. The interest rates, as with any bonds or any financing, are set at the time. So I can't predict what those are, but do
we have a guess?
Yeah, I mean, I made a guess to come up with some numbers in the report, but the last loan that they approved, I think there was actually one recently, and I don't know the rate on that, but in September was 4.1%. And so I was using 4 to 5% as an estimate to look at some different funding amounts. And at, I think, 40 million, I think the total was about, it's a rough estimate, but 2.5, 2.6 million a year. If you go up to the 60 million, it's something closer to 4 million, but those obviously depend on the interest rates in effect at the time. And I did some really rough, Excel amortization schedules. I didn't have a municipal advisor help with that. And the bonds are structured a little bit differently. But yeah, we have a bit of a funding gap. I think right now we've got about $1.5 million a year available in Measure N. That amount, as sales tax revenues grow, may grow over time. So depending on the amount we go for, there could be, there's a gap that we would need to fill and find additional funding for, of maybe $1 million up to potentially $2.5 million, depending on how much we go for. It kind of works like a line of credit, and so we can apply for more. And in fact, we've met with the iBank folks to see if this project would be a good project eligible for their funding. They believe it would. They recommend that you go high, like apply for more. You don't necessarily have to use it, but if federal funding or other funding might fall through or something else happens, you have that guarantee. So our job would be to find, the funding to pay for that on an annual basis. But then what you don't use, you don't pay for, right? And so it's a really good option for us, but there's still work to be done. The reason we're here today is, one, to get approval to apply, to go down this path. But two, the date of the resolution, you can go 60 days back as far as when we can reimburse ourselves for expenses. If we don't do this resolution or we wait until later, I mean, that obviously makes the date later. And so if there was any issue with any of our other funding where we needed to use this funding for any expenses incurred during this time frame, this allows us to do that.
And just to give a little more context, I think the reason the iBank, the ISRF program is attractive from an interest standpoint is the 4.1, 4.74% is typically the norm, and that's definitely below market if we were to go to issue regular taxes and bonds. So that's what's particularly attractive about the program.
That's helpful. I have two more questions. One, how long would we expect, I'm going to direct you, Berta, how long would we expect to keep the loan out for? So would it be a 10-year?
30 years. They go up to 30 years. Okay. And so I based it on a 30-year amortization.
And again, I just want to make sure I'm hearing and reflecting back. And so the interest of the 4.1 would be roughly, if it was on the 32 million, give or take, around 2 million-ish a year, we would be stacking on top of that. And then if we took out the full 65 million, understanding that hey, we'll apply for it, but we don't necessarily have to take it out. But that would look like an additional 4 million a year of interest on top of.
Not interest, total payment. So you're looking at a total payment of 2 to 4 million-ish, depending on the amount you go
To
for and
pay
the
it down.
interest rates. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 to 4 million a year for 30 years.
That was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alcala.
Thank you. Roberta, remind us how much the total cost of the park was estimated at?
Oh, that's a great question. I referred to the report because I get this information from the experts who are working on the project, but I believe it's around 60 million currently. Somebody will scream if I'm saying it wrong, but.
Okay.
No, that's accurate. That's with the entire build out of the
Right.
park, every phase of the park. Yes.
So the question is, so how much are we looking at in terms of when we do the application?
Well, we haven't
Shortfall.
gotten that far. We're currently looking at a funding gap of about 32 million, but depending on what we could find as far as funding options, we haven't internally really decided. We just know that we'd probably go for something higher than that funding gap to make sure that we're covered.
And you said if we did need it, then how does that work in terms of financing?
It's
When
like
you
a
said
line
that-
of credit. As you get reimbursed, you're drawing down on that, and when you're done, whatever amount you've used is the amount you're paying off.
And we're looking at a 30-year,
30-year term, yep.
yeah, you said how much that can be.
Again, these are
0.5.
very rough estimates, and if it comes out higher, do not come back to me whenever this happens. But based on, the most recent rate of about 4% that was granted, I looked anywhere between, I actually looked at, I think, 40 to 60 million, and I come up with 2.5 to 4 million a year, rough estimate.
Are we looking at 60 million over the course? Looking at?
So if we were to do 40 million, we're looking at 2.5 million a year as a payment. If we were to do 60 million, you're looking at about 4 million a year as a payment. So I'm providing a range because these are decisions that have not yet been made.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. This is very helpful information. And I still would like to pursue grant opportunities wherever possible and not.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. That's always our first option.
I think
Free
I
money
did
is
chat
good.
with Aaron about some state funding that we haven't, I don't know if I did, Aaron, talk about state funding with you, but there is an opportunity with somebody that I want to pursue further. Whoever needs to be involved, okay? Okay, we need to connect as soon as possible. And everybody done with questions? We have public comment on that, right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. Lori Gutierrez.
Hello.
Hello. Ms. Gutierrez.
I'm here to talk about Bright Park. I'm a resident for 53 years. My family, my grandson's a 7th generation here in this community. And a lot has been taken from us. And I am only gonna support, I don't got my paper. The money that's supposed to be done for the park, which we had a meeting, the money needs to go to the park. It needs to be done. I don't know why we're prolonging it, what's going on, but I've been to a lot of the meetings. It's a go, thumbs up, everything's lagging. We have the money from what I was told, now we're negotiating. Now, the money should go to the park. If we have money afterwards, okay, then go ahead. Let me help it out. Sorry. Then reimburse it back. But first, the money needs to go to the park. Fix our community park, give our children, our elderly, and our senior citizen something they can go to enjoy. Because I'm tired of the lying, I'm tired of being put on the back burner. I know people ain't here that I'm talking for, but us, the people, are tired on our side. So get with the money and get our park together so we can enjoy it. I watch people when it's not being used, and it's not being used because it's not appropriate or proper for people to be out there in the heat and the cold. We want our pool. And I've seen all you guys. I've talked to all you guys, but I'm done. And I'm here for West Sac, the people, and I want our money to go first on the park. And what we have left, then you go ahead and do whatever you want. But the money needs to go to our parks first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. And Councilmember Alcala, weren't you under the understanding that Measure O was going to cover this?
That's what I believe. Next, Berta.
sorry, what was the question?
No, we have another speaker.
Okay.
Rhonda Pope Flores.
Sorry, I'm losing weight, so I pull my dang pants up. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused because, yeah, I've been a little MIA lately, but I thought we were good. Then I hear about $32 million gaps, and yeah, I know things cost money, but they cost money because, let's see, you got this little strategic plan. I remember being in a room back there, and I heard, when Mayor Christopher Cabaldon was here, that has been on the strategic plan since he was the mayor for all those decades that he brags about. And the reason why we're in the rut now that we're in is because it's dragged on for far too long. So when I hear all the rants and raves about Christopher Cabaldon and all the great things he did, this is the one thing he did not do. And so today, as we sit here and have these issues happen as to why we don't have funding, let's remember who drug their feet all those decades and allowed the North Side to suffer. I heard this presentation for SACOG. I have no idea who they are, but they have money. Okay, well, hey, that's great. Let's partner with them. Let's get Bright Park done. Let's do what we need to do. But I am so frustrated to come back to a meeting and hear that we've got a $32 million gap. And yes, I did go back. I didn't bring my binder. I have a binder this big. You bet when I get home, I'm going to be going back and I'm going to be looking at all the funds that were promised for Bright Park. And if any of them are omitted, there's going to be a lot to answer to. Nobody's going to take the money that was promised to Bright Park away from us. There's not going to be any backpedaling. If you think that we raised hell when that whole mapping issue took place, oh boy, there's going to be hell. Because we promised people this park was going to be done. There was money that said this park was going to be done. So I sure hope that everybody goes back to the drawing board and finds that money. I'm not sure what this $32 million gap is. That is insane to me. I can understand it because the circumstances we're in right now and the economic, what we have going on. I understand it, but you know what? It is not fair for this community to be penalized because we had a mayor that let that strategic plan and Bright Park stay on it for decades. In decades and decades, and we are where we are today. And now we have to find and scrape and find money. It is so inappropriate. We have a beautiful park on that side, and I know how much we spent financing it, so I don't want to hear complaints about what the interest rate is and the terms and all of that, because we did it then. Do it now.
Mayor, may I have Roberta come in? She'd like to ask some questions.
Roberta? Sure, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor
Go
Pro
ahead.
Tem Kizioho had a question. Why don't we do more public comment first?
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Oh, okay, well, we can bring Roberta back. And
Roberta, you were going to go first.
No,
go ahead. I do. Well, our public wants to know, on Measure O, what funds are going to be expanded on Bright Park, I think on the other parks as well, and why isn't this covering when people go to Measure O? There were things that they were promised, pothole, fire department, park. Could you respond to that?
Can I take that question?
I won't. Yeah, I'm going to let the city manager
Yeah, I
take
just
that
want
one.
to, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was last meeting or the meeting before where we did the Measure O budget. And just to provide a little more background context for those that weren't part of that, Measure O was per council direction, and the entire, context of Measure O, the background for it was to address maintenance and operations gaps in the cities, both in public safety and critical infrastructure. And that's what the budget reflects. So the Measure O budget primarily covers, in addition to, the fire positions that were restored within 45, there are there's 13 additional sworn police positions. There are several positions in parks. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. A dedicated road maintenance crew. So Measure O is all about maintaining the city, improving standards around parks and roads maintenance, police and fire protection. It has a component in terms of the road maintenance function that will fund several CIP projects. Similarly, on parks, there are CIP projects that will be funded out of Measure O, but those are primarily repairing things at parks today and kind of restoring them and bringing them up to a good new standard. So when we look at Bright Park, the strategy that we've constructed from day one that has allowed us to raise so much money through grants and other sources, the local side of that has always presumed to be Measure N. So people may be thinking about Measure N, which was the prior tax measure, which has a component for community improvements. It's the same funding source that was the primary local funding for Memorial Park when we redid the baseball field. And so when we talk about the iBank loan, it's a way to allow the city to finance the gap on the local side of the remaining budget for Bright Park. And we don't have any decisions to make tonight, but as we look ahead, the projection would be we're going to look to first the balance available in Measure N on an annual basis as the primary source for funding the debt service on an iBank loan if the council ultimately chooses that. So Measure N is kind of the primary target right now for what the money that would pay this loan would be for Bright Park, not Measure O. That was always
When it comes to repayment sources for any bonds, any loan, all of the tax measures are considered general fund because they're general tax obligations. They roll up, and so the iBank does not differentiate between which fund we use. So we would essentially say general fund. And it's because legally that's what we have to say, but then it allows us to use general fund or any of our tax measures. We internally would identify the specific source that we plan to use for repayment, but it's more general on the application.
So I just have a question, Aaron. Okay, I understand what you're saying about different measures and how that's. I think one of the concerns out here is when are we going to have money available for the work?
Yeah, I mean, I want to also give more perspective here in terms of why we're here tonight. I mean, we are here tonight because we are following up on the direction to move this project forward. It has been a top priority for this council for several years. That's reflected both in terms of the aggressive fundraising effort that our staff has put forward to secure grant funding through various grant funding sources. I've been here a long time. I have not seen an effort like this one for a park project, and we're actually really excited and proud of that. It is a full rebuild of one of our biggest parks in the city. And so while there's a little bit of sticker shock for everyone in terms of the total cost, keep in mind that this is the total cost for the entire park. It's a scenario where it would not be phased. It would be built all at once, and that's a council decision that'll have to be made eventually. But we are trying to paint a picture here for teeing this project up and getting it done on the most aggressive time frame possible. And one way to do that would be to look at this iBank loan as a way to fund the gap, which it's on the city at this point. We've gotten, I don't remember the exact number of grant funds, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 million in total grant funding sources. And so the rest, we've really looked at all different options, and we're always open to look at more if there are other grant opportunities out there. But the reality is we have still a fairly significant gap, and the iBank loan gives us a vehicle to at least raise the amount of money that would be needed to fill that gap. Ultimately, what we do with whether the loan is sized differently and the project is scoped differently, that's going to be a council decision that will be made fairly soon. But we are here tonight because we're on this schedule and plan to build this entire park as quickly as possible.
The Measure N money, we'd borrow from Measure N money. This application that we're making would then reimburse the Measure N money. Is that?
No, I want to clarify a couple of things because first, there's been no money lost from this project. So we continue to add funds to fully fund the project, and we're trying to fund the remaining gap. But there have been no funds taken from this project. And as our city manager said, I have not seen a fundraising effort like this in any jurisdiction that I've been at with the amount of money raised and added to a project in the time frame that it has. So number one. Number two, We're not talking about reimbursing Measure N. So we're talking about utilizing Measure N as the source of funding to repay the loan over time. The reimbursement that we're talking about is essentially once bonds are issued, for example, you have 3 years from the date the bonds are issued to spend the funds. But you can't go back and fund any of the expenses that have already been incurred. By adopting this resolution today, it says that these funds, when they are approved, will allow us to fund project costs that were incurred 60 days ago, from 60 days ago from today, through 3 years after the bonds are issued, right? So it gives us a bigger time frame. Chances are we won't have to use those funds for any of the costs we're incurring now. We have money in the bank for costs that we're incurring now for design, which is underway, right? But with what's going on in the federal government, if there was any problem with the grant funds, we don't expect any problems. But if there was a problem and we lost grant funding that is already on this project, and that's money that we're using to fund the costs that we're incurring now, rather than having to come up with city funding to fill that gap, we would be able to use these bond funds that we get in the future to cover the costs that we're incurring now. We don't expect that to be anything that we need to do. This is just covering our butts, basically, to say, hey, we have this option, and the sooner we get to council, the sooner we have a date that we can actually start using the funds once they're awarded. That's the only reason we're here tonight.
Okay, I feel like there are residents a little bit in the dark and probably need a little more time to process what we anticipate with November 2025 construction start date. I don't know if our residents are aware of that. And that's the plan to start, according to this staff report. Right, Jay? Okay. Roberta's our fiscal person. She talks about the bank stuff, and Jay is here in case anybody has any questions and would like to speak with him outside about any of that. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any of your questions so that you can be familiar with what the planning is, and we will expedite what we can to get the money going to Bright Park.
Yeah, I do believe one of the things with the time frame is one of the loans that we did receive requires us to own the land. There's a time frame with that that says that we basically November 2025 is when we could purchase and own the land, and we can't construct until we own it. And so I think that's the delay in the time frame. But
they still need to be aware of all those details.
Oh, totally. No,
Yeah, and just to also,
Communicate.
this is in the report. I don't expect people to have read this entirely, but we are at 80% design on the project. That's a very significant milestone when it comes to a project of this nature. Typically, when we're looking at financing for
Huge.
It is, and
Yeah.
so we definitely just to remind everyone that the council directed, it was a little over a year ago, to proceed with the full design of the project for the entire scope of the project. Now, I want to make one thing clear, though. We have, a big funding gap, and you have a project that can be built in multiple phases. The direction we were given was to go design the entire project, which we have done and we're continuing to do to bring it to 100%. We are also looking at scenarios to allow the council to make the decision to build the entire park as one phase. The next step for the council will be to really look into the details of each phase and all the components of the park, the various requirements of the funding sources, and ultimately make the decision on what the final scope of the project is. So that's going to be the next big milestone when we are at, I think, 100% design. Jay's saying yes. And we have better clarity around the details of the iBank loan and the other funding sources that we have for the project. But we have been full speed ahead on this project for well over a year, even before that when we were raising funding. And we're at a very significant milestone here where we're looking at an option that would allow us to build the entire park, in this case, finance what is a very significant gap. But in the context of the overall budget of the park, let's not put aside for a second that we have raised $25 million for this project. And again, that is an unprecedented number. It took a lot of effort to get there. We definitely don't intend to slow down here. So a big decision is coming, but I want to, I think tonight should be more of a acknowledgement of these milestones and hopefully build some excitement around what this project could be.
Yes. And as Ms. Gutierrez mentioned, with climate change and, the temperatures getting hot and cold and for the residents to go to, because they don't have the air conditioning and all the amenities that some of our newer areas have. And it's cost prohibitive. So a park is a very good way to stay cool, and recreational activities for the youth is incredibly important for that area. And trying to get this built, it's been too long, as another speaker, Rhonda Morningstar, Hope Flores has mentioned, been way too long. And happy to see it moving along. And maybe Councilmember Alcala can invite Jay to a town hall presentation to include other members of the public to provide just a brief presentation on what's happening. Sounds like a lot of steps need to be taken, and your advocacy and support on this item is much needed. And thanks to all the staff for all the hard work that you put behind all of this to get it to where we're at today. Looking forward to seeing breaking ground and having all of you there with your kids celebrating that moment. Next, we have item 13, which is, would this be you, Aaron, to speak for the question? Do you have a
It'll
question?
be between me and Amanda, I think, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I was following 100%. Appreciate the options that you gave us here. So the total contract for $150,000 annually, I'm reflecting the information that's in the report, just for those who are also in the audience. The last RFP, if I'm understanding right, was done in 2021, right? Okay, perfect. I'm tracking good. That was for a 3-year contract, and then what we have in front of us today is to do basically annual renewals, right? So 1-year renewals up to 3. Did I get that correct as well, or no?
Correct. The 2021 contract was a 3-year contract with the option for 3 1-year.
Okay. Couple of things at least that were that I flagged as I was looking at their scope of work and their duties. I see a couple of times in here work with city council, and I appreciate that. However, I've been on city council since 2021, and I think I've met them once.
No,
So-
many times it's kept.
Nope, I actually
you
didn't
didn't
get to
go?
meet them every single time. I've gone every time I co-lead a team, actually.
Yeah, we typically in the
but,
past have done annual check-ins with council with Holland and Knight. I don't know that those have been occurring in the last year or two, but that's definitely so. That part of what's in the contract scope historically has been an annual check-in with council. We typically do it as we have a couple council members at a time for obvious reasons, but that's something that I know has been a little less consistent lately, and we can definitely get back to that. In addition to, I know in having conversations with some of you, having more engagement when we do things like Cap to Cap from Holland and Knight. I think that's definitely feedback that we're giving to them, and hopefully can be put into meaningful action.
Yeah, and so thank you, and I think you are picking up what I'm putting down, because you have working with city council, you have facilitating establishment of relationships between mayor, council members, and city staff or our federal government, and then we have briefing report for city council. And so I do agree. I think that Cap to Cap is an opportunity for us to advocate on behalf of our city, a great opportunity for us to not only engage with them, so to do the meet and greets, but to be maybe supported in slightly different ways. Maybe that has that has happened, at least over the past few years that I've been involved. And I'm speaking strictly for myself. Mayor, I understand it sounds like potentially you have gotten a little bit more engagement than I have.
No, not really.
Oh, okay. I'm not trying to speak for you.
I mean, yeah, I'll have to knock on a few doors to get there, but
I would prefer not to knock on a few doors.
It's not natural.
Okay, so that's just one of the things that I'm flagging on this, not trying to disrupt it. But the other thing, just thinking about, I think what we'd be saying if we approved the staff recommendation would be that we would be going out all the way to 2027 with this this consultant. And so I just want to I want to clarify.
Yeah, we would have the option to do that. I
Okay.
think what this does is it fixes we sort of consider this kind of a clerical error in terms of the aligning the budget with the contract term.
Okay.
So it fixes that part, but we still have the option to either renew or not every year. So, so it just aligns the budget with the potential term of the contract.
Okay. I would be interested in seeing us open it up for RFP later on this year. So it looks like our RFP time is usually in November. I'm not even suggesting we amend this for that, but I am flagging that after maybe seeing more engagement, at least I can, once again, just for me, maybe that would give me less pause. Yes, those are my thoughts on this particular contract.
Okay, yeah, I would recommend we have several conversations around things like RFPs. But what this does is it gives staff the option to make the extensions. It doesn't mean that we're locked. It's
Yeah,
still an annual lock.
it just, a couple of your alternatives, which again, I appreciate your alternatives. One was decline to approve the amendment and agreement and direct staff to conduct a new procurement process. I'm not necessarily declining the amendment, but I am flagging that I would be interested in seeing what an RFP procurement process could be like later on this year, again, after having more opportunity to work with them. And again, speaking for Councilmember Early.
Thank you.
I just want to add, Councilmember Early is speaking for Holland and Knight, very reputable. And they also are, Holland and Knight is also Sacramento's firm. To the extent that we can share experiences on what they experience and what we experience to make sure that it's comparable as well.
Good suggestion.
Yes. And in addition to that, they you know, in Los Angeles County, they do provide service there too. And
Do you guys get lots of attention?
I'm gonna add just for you, just kind of make you feel left out.
Okay, I see what you did there. Okay.
The mayors and CEOs on homelessness and housing. Man, we get some good stuff.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like a little bit,
Individualized
a little bit of that
attention.
love.
We get that. We get paper. We get policies. We get hits on budget. We get strategies. It's a lot of one-on-one engagement with because as that role. I mean, I see them in a different and from there's a lot of engagement, and not only that, but they hook us up with congressional members, and so there's.
Just rubbing it in.
I'm just telling you, they are great.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, hey, they have the potential to do this. Maybe it's just, I know I certainly haven't asked to be fair to our city manager. And so that's what you're hearing me at least not say I don't want to vote for this, but very publicly saying
They
that
know how
I
to
would
do
like.
it. They know
Yes,
how to do it.
perfect.
They know.
And so hopefully they're watching this video. I would love that. I would love that same engagement.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
For clarification, they represent the West Sacramento area flood, WSAFA, and the port. Does WSAFA pay any portion of this with funding?
Yes, I believe there's a breakdown in. Yeah, so the contract is split 50% city, 40% WSAFA, and 10% port. And that's just kind of a reflection of the overall federal priorities, since flood protection is such a huge, always been, will continue to be our #1 priority. That's why WSAFA has most of the, well, it's not most, the city is most. WSAFA is 40%. And then the port, their main advocacy point for the port is to maintain the depth of the channel. So for annual appropriations for channel dredging. So that's the basis of why the port contributes as well.
I know it was on there. Wanted it.
Right. Yeah,
I
it's
thought
all
it was
a reflection of the city's priorities, and flood protection is #1.
They are effective in getting the funding for the dredging. And the dredging, so you know, is not to dredge deeper, it's just to clear the sediment that grows and needs to get cleared. I hope we continue to get that money, because if we don't, so. All right, we're all done with 7, 9, and 13. I'll accept a motion. Oh, Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we're all done with the consent agenda speakers? Okay. That I'll motion to.
Early move. I'll second.
Okay. Councilmember Early moved, Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. Right. Next is our public hearing agenda items. We have item 14 under community development, a public hearing and consideration of first reading of ordinance 24-9 regarding amendments to Title 17 zoning of the municipal code to facilitate tiny homes and on wheels and legal dwellings. And with that, we have Daniel Baruman, who will do the presentation. Can you turn your mic on? It's off.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Daniel Berman, a senior planner for the city. Tonight, I will be presenting on the proposed tiny home on wheels ordinance. Just a brief history of how we got here. In 2020, the city received a report that a tiny home on wheels was placed and occupied on a residential lot in the Bright neighborhood. It was deemed non-compliant as a housing type and was not connected to municipal utilities like water and sewer. In 2021-2022, code enforcement began enforcing in violations. However, enforcement activity essentially stalled as a property owner was working towards compliance with the city. In 2023, the city council directed staff to look at tiny home on wheels as housing options in residential areas. On September 7th, 2023, the Planning Commission held a public workshop on tiny home on wheels. A couple months later, City Council held their workshop on tiny home on wheels, and the direction provided by Council was to move forward with an ordinance to allow tiny home on wheels potentially as primary and accessory dwelling units. On October 17th, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, ultimately approving tiny home on wheels as legal dwelling. And since that point, last 6 months or so, staff has had communication with tiny home on wheels owner in the community and as well as the advocates. So what are tiny homes? They're essentially just compact homes, smaller homes, but they do have a specific definition. They're generally under 399 square feet. They can be stick-built or factory-built. They're usually on a foundation slab. They do require sewer and water connection. And they must meet fire and safety requirements. And the size of the unit isn't really relevant to zoning. Usually the footprint is pretty small. They are allowed as primary and accessory dwelling units at the moment. So they can be built in the city of West Sacramento at this time. Kits can be purchased online. They can be purchased through Home Depot, Lowe's, but they do still require building and development permits. What are tiny home on wheels? This is the distinction and the reason we're here tonight. So it's essentially a variant of tiny homes. They're built on a chassis, which essentially are support frames for vehicles. Vehicles are not legal dwelling units, so they're essentially governed by the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they must get registered. They are not subject to building code at the moment, but they are essentially regulated by the Housing Community Development Department, and they are allowed in mobile home parks. They can be towable, but they can't be movable under their own pouch, so it's not like an RV or a trailer in that case. They do have RV-style power and water sewer hookups, so that is a similar way of similarity between RVs and some of the trailers to tiny home on wheels, and they can be off-grid. What tiny homes are not intended to be, and this is not the intent of this ordinance, is what you see on the screen there. We're not intending them to be trailers, motorhomes, RVs. You can't just plop one of these and call it a tiny home on wheels. What the current code allows is what you see here. These tiny homes would be permitted currently. At this moment, these would not be permitted. See, just the difference is the actual wheels. What the tiny homes ordinance really, how this came to be, through the city council workshop, back in November of 2013, excuse me, there was an attempt to look at tiny home on wheels as both primary and accessory dwelling units. The critical issues that were brought up revolved around how to address appearance and design, health and public safety considerations, sewage disposal, power, and potable water. What staff's attempt to do through this ordinance is really to address these issues with the 20 categories that you see in the supplemental regulations on the left hand of the screen. And I'm going to highlight a few of them because I think these are critical as we discuss tiny home on wheels. Public utilities. The city would still require typical development standards such as connections to utilities, water, sewer, electrical, requiring permits. Impact fees will still be assessed contingent on the type of dwelling this unit will be. For example, ADUs are exempt because tiny home on wheels typically are under 400 square feet. ADUs are exempt from impact fees at 750 square feet. Moving on to administrative approval. Proposed tiny home on wheels must receive an administrative approval from the Community Development Department. So planning would take the lead in terms of taking in this application and reviewing all of the supplemental regulations that are along with it. When it comes to appearance and design, the tiny home on wheels should resemble a residential unit that you typically see in this community, rather than a recreational vehicle, as I mentioned. This shall be done by incorporating design features such as roof pitch, the types of materials that you typically see in the residential neighborhoods. And then lastly, parking pad. The wheels shall be skirted or essentially screened or be removed and shall sit within a leveling pad of sorts, like foundation. So this would be in accordance to our current code, just as any residential structure would be. You can see that there are amendments to our residential chapter 17.08. Tiny home on wheels would be allowed in 5 residential zones, excluding the high density zone. So you can see towards the bottom, permitted in all residential zones, provided that they get an administrative approval. Through this process, we did develop a flow chart. We understand that this is a new and interesting process to develop tiny home on wheels as primary and accessory dwelling units. But we did want to make sure that we had a way of approving them that would be straightforward for all the divisions that are involved, beginning with an application submittal, application review, administrative approval letter that planning would take in, the permitting process, including the payment of impact fees, construction and inspection, and then lastly, final connections and occupancy. With that, we did have a draft administrative approval application that we included as an attachment to the staff report. You can see that right here. And so lastly, staff respectfully recommends that the City Council conduct this public hearing, find that pursuant to Section 15305 of the CEQA guidelines, minor amendments to land use are categorically exempt, and conduct the first reading of Ordinance 24-9 detailing amendments to Title 17 of the Municipal Code to accommodate tiny home on wheels as a legal dwelling. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any.
Thank you, Mr. Barone. Any questions among council members?
Yes.
No? Councilmember Olson?
You had mentioned, thank you for the presentation. You had mentioned that at the Planning Commission meeting, and I believe it was maybe October 2024, that there was a 3-2 vote.
Correct.
Of the 2 people who were not in approval, what were the concerns and how, if at all, were they addressed?
The concerns were mainly around appearance and design, and the utility connections. What we did was essentially try to elucidate that they would just, tiny home on wheels would really look like any other residential dwelling unit. They would have to follow the same guidelines. And that's what we tried to do with the supplemental regulations. And when it comes to utility connections, they're not exempt. So tiny home on wheels would have to have sewer, water, electrical, and that would go through a permitting process.
And was that the presentation that we're getting tonight, or have there been any changes in the interim?
There haven't been any changes. That we have worked with the Tiny Home on Wheels advocates just to go through the process of what that looks like. But essentially, when it comes to appearance and design, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We actually just utilized what we currently have and made sure that any application that would be coming through would have to follow the guidelines currently in our residential code.
But despite, it seems like the guidelines require that there have to be a hookup and some stable permanence to the structure as it is, even if it's tiny home on wheels on a foundation, a slab, hooking up. Still, it was the case that 2 people on the planning commission found issue with that.
Yes, that was correct. And what we wanted to do was just ensure that this was that we had that obviously very clear in our report and what we wanted to do with our supplemental regulation. So, in terms of a foundation, that's absolutely necessary. In terms of tie downs, that's something that has to go through the manufacturer. And when it comes to essentially the design of the unit, it would just have to meet residential.
Okay. I'm an owner of a recreational vehicle, and I'm familiar with the permanent types and the impermanent types. And I understand. Thank you for putting that into vision for those of us who are watching the presentation. That's not a recreational vehicle, tiny home, a permanent home on wheels. But can you explain for those folks who aren't familiar what skirting mean? I mean, this isn't like a bed skirt, correct? This is something that looks a little bit more permanent.
Yeah, there would be some sort of screening that would be involved with making sure that the tiny home on wheels aren't visible. So they would be putting some kind of material that would essentially make them not a visible component from residential areas.
And so how does one, if they were to establish a setup, say tomorrow they wanted to go ahead and pull up and establish a tiny home on wheels, they just set up as if they were any other homeowner with the city and establish electricity and water and utility?
Well, in terms of this ordinance, they would have to follow an administrative approval process. So if they were looking to, set up, say tomorrow, and we would have to go through an application process that gives us all the information that we need to review whether this is fire safe, whether this is has all the connections that are necessary for as a residential structure. So we would follow this just as any residential structure.
Sorry, I didn't even want to say it tomorrow. That wasn't valuable. Part of my question, I just added that in. But I guess the question would be for, say I'm a landowner, what's to stop somebody from just moving and going and having multiple structures coming and going on a structure, or is there any?
It would, yeah, it's a good question. I think it would all depend on the utility connections. So those connections are vital in this case, just because actually we had this question back and forth. Certainly, tiny home on wheels is a movable option for a residential type. However, they're not intended to be, moved regularly. They're actually semi-permanent. So the utility connection is really that linchpin that would say, no, you can't just go up and leave. You would need to make sure that you've got the hookups that are in place, and if you need to abandon them for a time period, then you can. But you need to make sure you're working with the proper entities to make sure that happens.
If I might jump in, I'm over here.
Thank you. I'm like, where's this going?
Everybody's looking around. I'm Andrea Aus, the Director of Community Development. So I just wanted to just put a little cherry on the cupcake here. So the administrative approval process, step 3, as we have on the screen, is through the planning division, and that would identify things like the design of the skirting and the exterior materials and the placement, and to ensure that there's appropriate driveway access, et cetera. Once that approval letter is issued, then it goes through a permitting process, just like every other residential unit would, which would include things like utility connections and getting connection permits from the Development Engineering Division, and the flat work, the concrete, to allow for a dust-free surface to lead to the pad and to lead to for the driveway. So there are kind of just a nuanced couple of steps there that I think what you're asking is, would this be an interchangeable thing where a tiny home on wheels could be wheeled in and wheeled out and there'd be a different one? That wouldn't happen, because the administrative approval letter would memorialize what the proposal would be, and the agreement would be, it would be this tiny home on wheels and not any other one going through that process. I hope that clarifies. Okay.
May I?
Yes, Mayor.
Just to build on that, because I think I have clarity there. One of the things that I don't see addressed here, and if I missed it, I apologize, is ownership of the land. And so is there a world where a property owner who owns the land leases to a tiny home owner? And if they did, they could go through the administrative process and get approved. But if that tiny home owner left, they would need to be a new administrative process if a new tiny home came in? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'll jump in. Yes. Okay. Yes, yes, because we're memorializing a specific tiny home on wheel that came in, and ostensibly, once they got the letter, has met all of the design criteria. If you were to change out that tiny home on wheels, that would not be necessarily the case. It would have to be reviewed for compliance with the criteria that we're looking at tonight.
Okay. Do you think there's a scenario where a landowner could lease to a tiny home owner?
I think that's foreseeable, yeah. I mean, that could certainly happen. It's just like any other residential unit.
But the tiny home owner owns the home,
Mhm.
and then they bring it on the land.
Correct.
That could happen if they figure out how to deal with the impact fees and all the hookups and everything that looks like that. It could happen.
It could happen, yes.
Okay. Doesn't seem very ideal. I'm seeing heads didn't sign on. That's helpful. Thank you.
Can I ask another question then? Because then you have a potential scenario where you have a landowner and a person who owns a home that is now on the land. But if there was ever a situation where the landowner had different plans for the land, but the lessee or the tiny home owner who had an agreement with the city was put out as a result of the landowner's decision making, what recourse, and have we covered all those bases with how it is that we would deal with fairness to the person that, I mean, have these kinks been worked
So I'm going to take a stab at it and ask Jeff Mitchell if he wants to jump in if I'm going astray. We have not put any of that into the ordinance because those are private agreements between a lessee and a property owner.
Correct. In that respect, it's not substantially different than leasing your home to someone and potentially having a dispute, landlord-tenant dispute. Landlord says the tenant shouldn't be in my house. Those kinds of issues come up not often, hopefully, but the police will deal with those on occasion. It could be a similar situation to a mobile home park where the mobile home owner and the property owner are in a dispute over whether or not they have a right to be there. So in that respect, it's not substantially different from other situations that
I guess I didn't think about it that way. I don't think about it in terms of a
Because
permanent
because
home,
what
but-
the tiny home owner will have is a permit from the city that allows them to be on the property, but if it is not their property, that is with the consent. If that consent is lost, and if there's a dispute, that's a civil dispute that would be dealt.
Fair enough.
Any other question? What I don't see, I don't know if there's a reason for this and help explain. The expense of following through with this administrative approval application, the cost associated. I received an email from someone who built an ADU. And that's when I was canvassing, explained to me I'm building an ADU, and then followed up and said, that ADU, the total permit fees came to $24,220. $24,220. I don't know who said that, but yes, that ADU, and he had to, decide, he had to make adjustments, things result. And had asked for us to take a look at our permitting fees, and I don't know how much it costs to get a tiny home, but say, for example, this person thought tiny home is a lot cheaper, maybe to get in here. I don't know how to compare the two. If it is cheaper to get a tiny home versus building an ADU and paying all the permit fees, but I see there's some overlap somehow in this ordinance, and I'm wondering if there is a cost incurred more on a tiny home who's already coming with their structure versus an ADU who's building something, or maybe they got prefab structure. I don't know. I mean, you're the one. I had asked for a briefing on this because I wanted to understand this better. Haven't gotten it, so now we're here. And because of this email, I wanted to understand our ADU policy, and I would prefer, because nowadays it's just, I think for family members to have, their loved ones live close to them. Another one, when I was canvassing, was talking about some of the barriers to be able to get a permit. He didn't want to add some things because he had it in the home, so he wanted to, not have. I forgot what it is, but it was kind of like not having the whole ADU unit, but having a modified one, but the person was going to come into the home and use some of the facilities, and having barriers to that. But this is not somebody, who we have coming here every council meeting reminding us of the importance of these modifications. These are people who I bump into as a result of going out and talking to them individually. So I understand that that's one other reason why, because I wanted to understand the ADU world, the policies we have, the costs, why we're charging these things, and what we can do to make it more affordable. I know the state legislature has been trying to reduce some of the barriers, build more, because that's the way to address getting more housing when people are interested in doing this today. I'm sorry, did I throw all that much?
I think there's a couple parts there. When it comes to these tiny homes and tiny homes on wheels specifically, I think you still have to go through the utility connections. That's still a process that we're mandating from this ordinance. It would essentially just be like any other residential structure. This is coming in and like a prefabricated structure could be looked at as a similar way. Administrative approval, just speaking really in the terms of following the parameters of the ordinance, we envision something in terms of like a design review, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 for the administrative approval. Now, I know our book of fees may be updated soon, so we may have that figure updated, but that's one component. Now, when it comes to impact fees, it's outside of my realm, but I know there's significant impact fees that are part of any construction, and maybe I'll
Thank you.
let
And
Adria
yeah,
talk about that.
Daniel mentioned that we are updating our book of fees, and we are looking at impact fees associated with smaller units, regardless of if they are on wheels or not. This will be brought to the council in, I anticipate, a few months. And so at that point, we'll have a more robust discussion about the applicability of certain impact fees as it pertains to a variety of different housing units.
Yeah, just to be clear, that fee update is part of a much bigger effort that's been ongoing to adjust our fees. In this case, it's looking at a different paradigm. We charge residential development. It's more based on the size of the unit versus traditional, how many bedrooms it has, the kind of the former way most impact fees are calculated. But as you know, we've been working on a broader effort to really look closer at our impact fees across the city and trying to get those to a point where they're not such an obstacle to all sorts of development, especially housing.
So when somebody, like, say, Ms. Davis here comes in, or our neighbor comes in and, do they know upfront all the, I would have to say Mr. Springer didn't. He learned about it through the process. That's probably not helpful. Would be helpful for people as they're planning what to know upfront, what the costs are. Is that possible?
It's most certainly something that we are targeting and anticipating. It is a larger. It is a larger project, as Aaron had mentioned. We are looking at the comprehensive book of fees. We're looking at how we can better provide fee calculators, for example, for people to go online and to plug in what they want to do and have estimate of their fees. It's a technological tool that we are continuing to refine and work on, but that is definitely something we are working on currently.
But we have the capability to provide fee estimates. I think a lot of times what happens is people get ahead of that process and they are far down the road where they have plans and it's just I think what I'd encourage, and this is true everywhere, before anyone proceeds with spending real money on real plans and materials, to make that stop at the city and get as best information as you can around what fees be. Typically, it's I know Andrea probably wouldn't say this is because we want to be right all the time. We want to be precise, especially when we're quoting fees. But we have enough experience, enough good staff that can give people kind of a ballpark idea at least. So before they are too far down in their process, they can at least get that early read. So that's something we always encourage. It's just I think to your point, having both the word out that's what people should be doing, but also to Andrea's point, having easy to use tools on our website. That's something we're trying to add as a convenience for people who are looking at projects like that.
Okay, good to know they can do some estimates before they start the project. And then, if I know we have speakers here, there's just an idea of how much these cost and how much it would cost to get one on a property and what the barriers are, if there was any kind of NIMBYism to having one, what the city would have to address, if there are ways to block, getting one approved, if there's petitions people can apply, I don't know how that works. I know certainly that people don't like ADUs added on to a certain neighborhood. I'm familiar with that. Is there a comparable experience with a tiny home or not? And is this going to be tiny home where residential citywide, that people will start seeing if there's going to be a demand and a growth? We should.
Well, I can just kind of cover that. These are intended to be permitted by right. However, they must go through administrative approval process. So that's one avenue that essentially lets them go through, the applicant must go through that process. There isn't really an appeal process for
Okay.
other homeowners as currently stated in the ordinance.
That's very helpful for the public to know. By right means the council has no override decisions if they're called on to stop something from going through the process.
And to be clear, neither does staff.
Neither
it's
does
something,
staff.
if it meets
There
the
you go.
requirements, it means by right means by right. So
And this
we
is
can,
what
we
we are
can set
approving tonight.
regulations, but this is something that is intended to be a streamlined approval process.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. That's really important for us to be aware. All right, anything else among council members? Open it up to public comment. Madam Clerk?
Robin Davis.
Good evening. Hi.
Hello, Ms. Davis.
Exciting. I'm Robin, and I live in my 160 square foot semi-off-grid tiny home on wheels on my undeveloped residential property here in West Sacramento. It's exciting to be back on the agenda tonight, and I want to express my gratitude to all the people who helped us get here. To you, council, to staff, to our neighbors, to my family, to friends, and to all the supporters from around the state and country who have followed this movement in our mighty little city. We want to give a shout out, of course, to Daniel in the planning department who gave such an awesome presentation. Of course, he was thrown into the middle of this after David Tilley left us for another department, but Daniel took this on with an open mind and heart and included the community's input at every step. We appreciate all his transparency in this process. Also appreciate David Tilley for having an incredible amount of patience with me since October of 2020. I know that wasn't easy, so we appreciate David equally as he worked hard to get us here as well. We want to thank my district's council member, Norma Alcala, for being bold and taking the much needed step to bring this request forward for consideration. We thank you for all that you do for our district and the city and will continue to do. We appreciate you. And all the other council members for showing support and asking those tough questions along the way that should be addressed. We appreciate all of you. My last shout out goes to an advocate I met through this journey who showed up prepared with a USB and a stack of ordinances to our meeting with staff back in 2022, who I call my earth angel, my first follower and soul sister. Her dedication changed the fate of this city's tiny home journey. Andrea Montano. She is many people's earth angel and one of the best humans I know. The tiny home movement for this entire state wouldn't be what it is today without her. So thank you. Many of our fellow advocates from the tiny home movement, the YIMBY and affordable housing communities, to leaders in municipalities across the entire state are closely watching what happens here tonight. We are not just making a decision for our city. We have a powerful opportunity to lead by example and set the tone for the entire region. The choices we make in this moment will speak volumes about our commitment to real long-term solutions to the housing crisis. This ordinance is about more than policy. It's about people. It's about protecting the freedom to choose how we live, the freedom to create more diverse housing options that reflect the needs of our diverse population, and the freedom to build a future where everyone has a fair shot at safe, stable, and affordable shelter. We are fortunate to be a city already recognized by the state as a leader in pro-housing policy. Let's not stop there. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's stay competitive and show that we are not only serious about housing, we are serious about equity, sustainability, and opportunity for all. Thank you for your support and commitment to understanding this movement and bringing us to where we are tonight.
Andrea Montoya or Montano.
I did write a speech tonight, and after this, if there's any time, I'd be happy to go back and address some of the questions and concerns that came up as far as the utility connection costs across the state. We do have some of those numbers that we'd be happy to share in jurisdictions where these are already approved, along with some of the other design concerns and things that had come up. So good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, city members, City Council members and City Manager and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to present the first draft of the Tiny Home on Wheels ordinance. This proposal represents unity, community, and a heartfelt collaboration story, a journey that has strengthened our bond and helped us grow together while adopting our region's evolving housing needs. What began as a resident's innocent request for access to water has blossomed into a comprehensive study resulting in this new ordinance being presented here today. And with your permission and feedback and the contributions of our local residents, Planning Commission, and neighboring city planners, we've taken additional steps to present a supplemental package, including an application checklist and a process flow to promote the transparency, fluidity, and quality controls for health, life, and fire safety checks and balances. We value everyone's input, even the hard questions and reservations and concerns that have come up. They've all been thoughtfully articulated in this plan for the City of West Sacramento. By including these additional artifacts, we aim to address questions that emerge regarding eligibility requirements and provisions, design standards, zoning regulations, and administrative procedures for permit processing. Our goal is to create a clear pathway for application to approval for occupancy while safeguarding the integrity of our residential land uses and public resources. This ordinance represents another valuable tool in the housing toolkit, one that can allow thoughtful density that integrates seamlessly within our existing infrastructure. Tiny homes can offer our residents the ability to sustain our own organic growth, as SACOG's blueprint plan has presented, ensuring our young adult children are outpaced by the housing crisis, and our parents and loved ones can gracefully age in place close to family and friends. With this ordinance, we can recognize tiny living as sustainable, comfortable, efficient living spaces designed for 1 to 2 person households where they can become charming, cozy cottages, complete with welcoming porches and petite little garden spaces. As someone who once looked over Tower Bridge and waved at you all with curiosity and a hopeful heart, I dreamed that one day this day would come, and I want to express my deepest gratitude for that. Though it may seem like such a small advantage for infill opportunities for some of us, it is quite a big deal to be able to live within our means. Thank you for allowing us to stand before you and give us a chance to be seen and heard. I'm confident that the positive impacts of this ordinance will ripple back across the river and someday benefit our entire region. Just as little brother can grow strong and stand tall, becoming one day the big brother, I see the same influence West Sacramento has to set an example and this forward-thinking approach to housing diversity. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Michelle Burke.
Many communities in California and across the nation, via code, policies, grants, and fee schedules, have loudly proclaimed a need for low-income housing, while simultaneously telling us that green space and ecological concerns dictate low-impact development. Tiny homes on wheels are an answer to both housing and ecology. You should embrace the solution that grows your local sales receipts, because people in small dwellings tend to spend a lot more time socializing away from home. You should embrace a housing solution that leaves the land available for future development while building community and businesses in the present, with affordable housing for teachers, musicians, and business owners. You should lead zoning code away from its discriminatory origins with code that respects people instead of prejudice. And you'll be remembered for making a real difference in housing here and across the nation by approving a template for tiny homes on wheels to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Grijalva.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. This tiny homes on wheels ordinance is going to put West Sacramento in compliance with California law. We have been out of compliance for quite some time. I think all of the city witnessed when this homeowner tried to put, I guess it was water, trying to get water into her home. And it became an ordeal because someone in West Sacramento felt that tiny homes weren't aesthetically pleasing. And so for 3 years, we all witnessed this homeowner go through living hell. All of us witnessed it together. And so the ordinance that has been created is requiring the wheels to be taken off, and it sounds like it has some exorbitant fees also. And I think that is perhaps a plan indirectly to discourage people from having tiny homes. That is what I suspect, and it's just sad and pathetic, really, because it's a law, and we are out of compliance. And this ordinance is going to put us in compliance. But there is also another law, the United States Constitution, that makes it illegal for us to have exorbitant fees. And I think there was one county that was sued by, not by ACLU, but another justice organization, another civil rights organization, because the homeowner had ADU for his worker, and the county was charging him an exorbitant amount of a fine or a fee or something. Anyway, they went to court, and it was against the Constitution. And so I'm wondering if that's not what's happening here. I don't know what the rates are compared to Sacramento. We need to do some comparison rates, because if our rates are exorbitant, then they're unconstitutional, in my personal opinion. And it's an effort to discourage tiny homes. I encourage everyone to build a tiny home in their backyard if you can, because it's a solution for a homeless situation, and it's also the law. Just because someone in West Sacramento, like our former mayor or someone like that, doesn't like them because they're not aesthetically pleasing, doesn't mean that we don't get to have tiny homes. It's our right to have tiny homes, and I think we should have lots of tiny homes. Thank you.
Joyce Davis.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Davis, and I am Robin Davis's mom. As many of you know, Robin lives in a 160 square foot tiny home on wheels on her undeveloped residential property here in West Sacramento. As a parent, we never stop worrying about our children, no matter their age or circumstance. Robin's passion for housing equity and affordability is more profound and personal than you can imagine. She found a way to shelter herself on her modest income and to live within her means. This is not the case for Robin's sister, who struggles with housing instability, living on the streets of Southern California and not able to afford medication, housing, or food at times. Just like thousands of others in this state. To say that Robin is on a mission to cure California of its unhoused situation is an understatement. This ordinance and all that it relates to is her passion and will only serve to improve the housing crisis facing all of your constituents and their future. And I also believe it will serve as a blueprint for all communities and generations to come in California. If you have not guessed it already, Robin is an enigma with optimism, vision, and wisdom beyond her years. And I am blessed, thankful, and proud of that girl. Beyond words. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for providing an opportunity with this ordinance so that Robin can live in her tiny home on wheels safely and soon to be legally in your community.
Thank you.
Kimber Goddard.
I just wanted to take a moment. I initially did not like this idea. And I met Robin, one of the finest advocates I've ever seen. Wanted to take a moment and say I appreciate that the way she handled herself, the way she changed my mind on the subject, not easy, and a lot of other people's. I appreciate what she's done and the example that she has set. And I think that what her advocacy has demonstrated is a commendable way to achieve. Thank her for that, and I yield my time to much better speakers.
Rhonda Pope Flores.
I want to express my support for this, much needed. Also, just Robin. Well, actually, both of these ladies. Just, I know you guys were working on a contract with Holland and Knight, but you might want to look right here. Because these are some serious advocates right there, and you might save some money. Amazing. The only thing, maybe. The only thing I'm going to miss about this is hearing her speech that she started with every single time. And it was so amazing because you'll never forget those words. You're never going to forget her determination and what she's created for the future. While she did this for herself, she may not realize what she's doing for so many others that, have economic challenges in California where we live. Everybody's moving away. And so, Robin, don't underestimate or don't undervalue your crusade, I will call it, because I really do believe that what you've done is so amazing. It is going to open the doors for so many others, and you're going to be the face that they remember, at least in West Sac, or actually both of you, because I remember both of your faces. When I think of this subject, it's always these two that I always remember. But, please don't sell this short of what you've done. It's amazing. And you're going to help so many people that you probably have no idea. Of course, I always have, 2 cents to add. I do have some concerns about the timings. Just going through that situation myself here. Hopefully there's some time frames that are connected to the application process. Shouldn't be open-ended. Response times, there should be, time connected to all of those things, because otherwise we can get caught in la la land, and maybe that's been done. But if it hasn't, I think that would be 2 cents that should be added. But just amazing. You are so inspiring. I love your drive and what you've done. And now you get to actually enjoy your home, assuming no pressure that you do this evening. It's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. It's going to be an amazing example that's set. And I'm just so very proud to know you, Robin and Andrea.
Lori Gutierrez.
Hello, I'm up here again. I maybe met this young lady 3 times, and she actually lives 2 houses down from my childhood house. And when I seen it there, I was amazed. I was amazed because I've been looking for this. I've been looking at little houses because I take care of my mom and dad, and it's really hard. The struggle's hard right now. And one day, I'm going to worry about where I'm going to be when I'm old and who's going to take care of me and where I'm going to live. And she actually opened the door for me to set somewhere for me and my husband to be in life. And when I drive down my old school street, I think that's awesome. I've been at her house. I watched how she got water. I watched what she went through. I followed her on Facebook of the struggle of this young lady. And you know what? As a mother, I agree with her. I have a 33-year-old son and a 16-year-old son, and every day I worry about where my kids are going to afford to live. to live. And what she got, it's a grid. I'm born and raised here. All these trailers, these little, whatever you call, they got little things around their tires that she can do. There's a lot she can do with this. But she's on a property where she's safe. She's got wonderful neighbors. Wonderful neighbors. How I know? I was born and raised on that street. But I'm really proud of you because you open doors for everybody. And I'm glad that your mom don't have to worry about where you're at because you are in a safe location. And West Sac's a good place to live. Brighton, Broderick are very good places to live. There's good people. There's good neighbors. We live. We help each other. And what she's doing, keep doing. I'm really proud of you because I didn't think you were going to get this far. I really thought West Sac was going to push you out, but you stood your ground. And I'm here to support you. I may not be here all the time, but I follow you, girl. And she deserves a lot more. And I hope she gets everything she deserves. I'm just a support.
We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk, and thank you to all the speakers for being here tonight in support of this. Closing the public comment, bringing it back to council. Okay, no other comments. I'll accept the motion to approve this.
These two got it first.
Okay.
You go for it.
Councilmember
Enjoy
Alcala
that.
moved, and who seconded? Councilmember Orozco. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Councilmember Alcala and Councilmember Orozco seconded.
Thank you. Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hull?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. Thank you so much. Congratulations. And we have next item 15 under our community development is a public hearing and consideration of first reading. Ordinance 25-6 regarding amendments to Title 17 zoning of the municipal code to revise public noticing, engagement, and participation procedures in the review of large development projects.
Mayor, members of council, good evening.
Am I taking over? Okay. And I walked out, so I apologize.
That's okay. I can
Can we
start.
jump back in? Let's roll.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. My name's Andrea Ausa. I'm your Director of Community Development. I'm here tonight to present the first reading of Ordinance 25-6, which proposes changes to the city zoning code, specifically Chapter 1735, to increase engagement by the public in reviewing large development projects. Right. The objective of this ordinance is to promote more transparency and community engagement in large development projects. And those are often projects that generate additional public interest due to their size and their potential impact. Furthermore, this modification reflects the council's commitment to more meaningful opportunities for public to learn about large development projects earlier in the development process. So talking about the applicability of this ordinance introduces a new category called large development project. And those are defined as private development projects with over 500 residential units and those that require a particular discretionary approval. For purposes of this ordinance, a discretionary approval is one that's defined as one or more of the following: a general plan amendment, a specific plan or a specific plan amendment, an amendment to the Southport Framework Plan, or a zoning amendment, or otherwise known as a rezone. So some key enhancements brought about by this ordinance includes, and this is not an inclusive list, but expanded notification radius, and that would be notices would be mailed to a quarter-mile radius around the development project boundary. And currently, the mailing requirement under our current code is 500 feet. So it would be expanding by about almost 1,000 feet. A public workshop would be required. At this point, it's optional. The workshop would be held early in the process after an application's been deemed complete, but before it gets prepared for a public hearing. This would allow for more meaningful feedback and dialogue between the public and the applicant, and for an opportunity to learn more about the project. Agenda materials would be, and that's the staff report and the attachments, would be available earlier under this ordinance. It would be posted online at least 1 week in advance of a public hearing. And hearings will be scheduled early in the meeting, whether it's Planning Commission or City Council, and it would be agendized after administrative items, so the pledge, the land acknowledgement, et cetera, but before all other action items. A couple of items to note. The ordinance is exempt from CEQA because it doesn't directly impact the physical environment. As with all existing applications, the costs of the enhanced public notification would be borne by the applicants in this case, and that is the case currently. And these changes would apply citywide to all qualifying projects that I talked about earlier. They also reflect terms negotiated in the Yarborough Settlement Agreement. So with that, our recommendation tonight is for staffs and the City Council to conduct the public hearing, to find that the draft ordinance is exempt from CEQA, and to conduct the first reading by title and number only, amending Chapter 17.35 of the Municipal Code. That concludes my presentation. Available for comment or questions. Thank you.
Any questions among the council? All right, Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Kimber Goddard. We have no additional requests to speak on this item.
Bringing it back to council, closing public comment. House, thank you so much for all your hard work on this. And no other questions? The motion to move. Councilmember Paula moved, and Mayor Protem Pizio seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Ocala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe? Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Yep. Aye. Next, approved. We do not have any regular agenda items. We have a general administration. We have a new report. Councilmember Early.
Great, thank you. We got to hear a little bit about one of my assignments earlier, but I'm gonna jump right in. I've been busy bee on behalf of our city. So on March 19th, I met with the commission, set on the Yolo County Housing Commission, and the commission approved the fiscal year 25-29 agency plan. So that was the strategic plan. If you remember, Ian had come and presented to us. So we approved that plan and the capital fund updates, mid-year budget as well. We had an option to ground lease surplus property in Woodland, which was also approved. And then one of my colleagues was sworn in as an alternate, Bapu from Davis. On March 19th, I also sat on the New Hope CDC meeting, and that was also in Woodland. Both these meetings were in Woodland. The board approved, obviously, the previous meeting agenda, as well as minutes for the resolution of the 2019 infill infrastructure grant. We also approved the fiscal year 2024 through 25 mid-year budget update. And then we elected a chair and vice chair. On March 20th, I had the SACOG board meeting, which was in Rockland. Key actions that we did, we approved multiple transportation fund allocations and planning items. We also approved 4.72 million in active transportation program funds. Those are ATP. 2 million of those 4.7 were actually awarded to West Sacramento. It was a very, very competitive process. And this goes to what we were speaking about earlier regarding SACOG funding and the partnership that we have, and how great our staff is, by the way, at writing and submitting these applications for these grant funds. Again, it was a very competitive process across our 6-county region. We also held a public hearing for our staff vacancies. We discussed the CARTA loan that SACOG has loaned the Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority. We discussed regional workforce development and planning initiatives. The president of Sierra College came and talked about all the amazing work that they are doing. And then we also reviewed progress on Green Means Go regional trails and NorCal Go platform. On April 3rd, we had the SACOG Transportation Committee meeting. This was actually in Placerville. And we approved the minutes, obviously, but we also adopted SB 125 transit funding. And this is really important. Again, we talked about that fiscal cliff, and SB 125 is meant to fill in over the next few years the fiscal cliff that is happening both in Yolo County. Ours is significantly smaller, and SAC-RTs. We were presented with 2 options, one of which would not have actually met the capital needs of YTD while meeting the operational needs. And so we actually, as a transportation committee, voted to not only meet the operational needs of YTD, but also the capital needs by including an additional 2.8 million. SAC-RT, I will note, was made whole in their operations with a $50 million allocation from those funds, which was important. We reaffirmed our transit representation policy, which is important that those who sit on these regional transportation districts like YTD, we have that across in El Dorado, Placer, Sac County. There are, I think, in total 16 members that sit on regional transportation districts. And there is a policy that SACOG has to maintain that representation of those transportation districts. And so we reaffirmed that policy with MOU updates. We reviewed the 2025 blueprint implementation, phase 1 mobility zones, and the US 50 corridor framework. And then we discussed transit access and plans for A's games here in West Sacramento. And we previewed May is Bike Month, which, by the way, there will be another bike rodeo that I'm sure everyone is going to go to. That will be, I think it'll be back where it was a couple of years ago, which is right in front of Franquette. Everything is grounded there for me on that street. And then we received a CARTA board recap. On April 9th, which is today, I had a CARTA board meeting and a tour of Caltrans. And so we met in Rancho Cordova, which, by the way, if anything were to happen, apparently is the safest place in regards to earthquakes or anything like that. I found that fascinating. That would be the place that you would want to go. Key actions that we took is that we approved what the tolling hours would be for the Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority. Here again in Yolo County, that's across the causeway. I'll just keep reminding you guys what's happening because it can sometimes feel far away. We made it so that it would be 24/7 that we would actually have access, but the tolling hours would be like during peak hours. We also talked about eligibility and how we would collect those tolling dollars. We reviewed the scope for YOLO I-80 traffic and revenue study, and then we punted on a workshop of toll pricing and discount policy because we really got into what does equity look like when you are talking about tolling and you are needing to get across the causeway to get to your job, and you may not have a job that pays you a high income. And so what does that look like? And that's it for me.
Any other updates?
I have a quick
Yes.
update.
Executive Commission to Address Homelessness met. We had a special meeting to update our bylaws so that we could address just some administrative processes and identifying HAP funding. $1 million has been awarded to the county, and in our bylaws, it talks about, for the commission, about money being allocated fairly across all of the communities. And one of the comments that was brought up, and it'll be nice to see, is all of the organizations that are applying for funding. Many of them, like you may be located in Woodland, and 30% of your population that you serve is from West Sacramento. Digging more deeply into these organizations and not necessarily saying this amount of money is going to this provider in this city, but this is the amount of money that's going to services that are respected in that community. So it'll be interesting to actually look at a breakdown of funding that's coming to West Sacramento to address homelessness. That was HAP 5, and then we're preparing for a round of HAP 6. I think there's another $1 million, which will be allocated to service providers here in West Sacramento. My update.
Any other? Councilmember Alcala.
Okay, thank you. I attended the old Solano Air Quality Management District Board meeting today, and we had a very long presentation on emission reduction credits. It's interesting the way these credits work. Counties actually bank some of these credits, and I don't know how to describe it other than something like Bitcoin, and the credits are there. And if a county's not using them, another county can actually buy these credits from them. So the presentation was incredibly extensive. We find out how these credits are exchanged back and forth within California. And I'm going to tell you, it was a very it was a very difficult, actually, presentation, because I had no idea. I mean, to me, it was very it wasn't tangible, but that's the way California does business. They use guidelines put out by the California Air Resources. And then also there was a quick little notice that the Solano Air Quality Management Board will be having their annual Save the Air Quality Contest for children from kindergarten through high school. There are going to be 12 winners that they select for the art contest. And then, let's see, with SAFCA, we have a meeting, I believe, on the 17th. Councilmember Pizio Hall and I will be attending that. And Aaron, I do have an April 30th EIFD, the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. Is that correct, on the 30th? Is that still on?
I know we had to reschedule the one that was previously, Jennifer, you know?
Okay, I had it on calendar.
We anticipate that meeting being held on May 21st. I still need to confirm with a few people.
Okay.
Yeah, so stay tuned on that one. It
And
does need to
then-
happen in that time frame, though.
All right, thank you. And then April 19th, we will be, the city will be hosting the Recycle Fair at Bright Park, and I really love that fair. We have the different booths out there. The kids really enjoy this. I think I heard there was going to be an Easter egg hunt as well. And the Repair Cafe, I believe, will be on site. And they're an excellent group that goes out, teaches people how to sew, how to fix small appliances. It's all about sustainability and not putting things into the landfill. They've been meeting at Holy Cross every other month.
Thank you, Councilmember Alcala. Last week, at River City High School, the school district met to discuss with the parents. There were a number of listening sessions to review the SRO, the institution. And what I've gained from that is a very strong interest among all those present to receive an SRO, and we will be getting, from our 2x2 meeting, we will be getting an update about that. But listed from highest to lowest, the reasons why, and 81% for an SRO, physical security and emergency procedures was one of the main reasons. Threat assessment and prevention, active shooter response, building positive relations were the top 4. De-escalation techniques, is also included. I know that SROs can be a controversial issue because the way it was jettisoned out by the school board in the past, in 2020, without any kind of notice to council or police department, really. And at this point, the school board has reversed their interest to reinstate that by a vote of 4-1. And this current listening session is primarily to establish a plan, a program. So they have approved it for the 25-26 budget year, and the letter that was shared to us when we reviewed Measure O was to set aside our 50% to establish an SRO. And I did make a commitment to achieve that. And I know that I don't think these listening sessions were taped, other than for members of the public. But I know that our city manager would be happy to give you more of an update because he is meeting regularly with the superintendent about before this comes to us for a decision. But I just wanted you to be aware of what I've gathered in understanding this a little better from the 2x2. I know members of Sophia Hall had an understanding and things were a little different than what we thought. I wanted to really figure it out myself and be more involved and also be true to what we are, making a commitment and making sure you're all aware of what I'm learning. From that, I also want to share that we attended, Chief and I, again, another event, had a lot of events this last week, police department, attended with the River City High School Black Student Union, a great experience that the students engaged with the police department and it was I think very heartwarming to see many students come out in attendance for a cornhole toss. Yes, so it was a really many hours spent there, and just want to share my appreciation for West Sac PD for all that you do in the community. Not only that, but keeping our West Sac Little League parade, safe as well. And just always being involved in the community whenever asked. You do, I know, short-staffed and all, you guys do a lot to help out with that. So thank you so much. And staying engaged with the community. With that, move on next to our council calendar.
Good evening. Just a reminder that next Thursday there is going to be a groundbreaking at West Acre Park. It's going to start at 11. The time has changed from what the invite that initially went out. So it's an hour later than initially that went out. That's it for me.
Earth Day is April. It's on a Saturday before Easter. Yeah. In Bright Park. Hope it doesn't rain. City manager report.
Yeah, just to stay on the calendar topic for a moment. The 11 o'clock time was revised, just so everyone's aware, because we actually have a West Acre meeting that morning, so we want to make sure the full council is able to attend the West Acre event. So that was the reason for the move to 11 o'clock. It was going to be at 10, so we just want to make sure there wasn't. Sometimes West Acre can go a little longer than that. And then staying on calendar, more personal, we have spring break next week for Washington Unified School District, so I'm going to be taking off with my family through Wednesday. So I know we have one-on-ones. We can either work out where Amanda and Doug cover those, or Actually, Amanda's on vacation as well. So either Doug, or we don't have a council meeting until April 30th. That's the other reminder I wanted to give. We have a couple weeks, 3 weeks between now and the next council meeting. Right on the heels of that, though, you have Cap to Cap. And so the last update I was going to give you is Doug will be reaching out individually to you to schedule time to kind of go over some of the status updates on both our federal priorities, but also on questions around grant funding, both existing grants that we have, but also grants that we may have pending with the federal government, just so you have that information ahead of the trip. And he is attending Cap to Cap along with a couple other staff. So, and that's all I have.
I just want to flag for the team that Caltrans has a memorial, its annual memorial. It's in West Sac this year at Riverwalk Park during that same exact time. It's on April 17th from 10 to 12. Just flagging it for you. There's going to be quite a
What time is that again?
It's
10 to 12?
10 to 12, Riverwalk Park, 651 2nd Street. You know.
Did they send us an invitation?
I just bumped into him, and but it would be nice for him to send us an invitation. But
I don't think we're aware of that event.
Can we invite
we
him?
schedule.
yeah, no, he would love
Can you
to.
invite us?
I'm not trying to start nothing.
Yeah, we schedule our events around availability of council and schedule of projects. So that was just a coincidence that our West Acre Park
Yeah, they're
event
back in our backyard.
is
They normally
scheduled
invite
at the same
us.
time. We don't,
Give us
if
a
we don't
heads
get the
up.
invitation, we don't know.
Yeah.
do that.
I'll at least have him share it. It's a time block, and it just is a memorial for Caltrans workers, right, who have passed away on the job, right? Mm-hmm.
We can reschedule the event.
No, not that. We can always swing by and then, we could swing by and then do both.
Okay. So ours is at 11 o'clock, right in the
Don't
middle.
have to reschedule that.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at it.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. City Attorney report.
Nothing to report.
Staff direction from city council members. We have one memo for council member Sopizio Hall, and I think we have to, can you provide some direction, city manager, about this request?
Yes, this request will come on May 4th, I believe, and it's ahead of the actual date of the memorial date. So that would be the meeting that we would propose to have that proclamation. And I
May
believe we're also doing
7th.
the police officers memorial.
May
Yeah, I'm
7th.
sorry, April 30th. The actual date is May 4th. So for both of those proclamations, even though it's not listed here, we're going to do the police officers memorial proclamation and the firefighters as well on the April 30th. So we're good with that in terms of workload.
April 30th, we're gonna have two.
Right.
Okay. April 30th. It's a busy night. Might want to take another flight. So. Okay. Future agenda item request by council. I do have a question. May is Bike Month, and is that a council proclamation or a mayor proclamation?
I believe that's on our regular list, but we can check with that and find out. We only have one meeting, and it is on the regular list. We only have one meeting in May. I think it's towards the middle of the month, but we'll make sure that's on the May agenda.
No, they want it on the April 30th agenda.
Oh, we
add
could,
that on the April.
well, I'll talk to Paul about it.
That's why I'm asking if it's one or the other.
It's on our regular agenda list. We can tailor the date based on when it's needed, and if it's April 30th, we can
That's when we
probably add it to that
requested it.
agenda. But I'll check with Paul. I don't want to, there's workload and all that, but I'll double check. It's probably doable on April 30th.
Oh, I don't have mine. I want mine. And speaking of Repair Cafe, I will be hosting a health fair. Well, I think Logan. So the Elk Grove Alumni Chapter reached out and asked to do something like that, and it's also being combined with Move with the Mayor, who would like mayors to be doing some physical activity, so we'll be doing a bike ride over to Holy Cross Church with some health fair type activities going on. Big day for that day. Hopefully, you're all invited in case I don't get a chance to tell
What day are
you
you
all.
doing
That's May 30th. No, May. Next month, May 30th. So it's like I'm combining it with Bike Month, and May is Bike Month. Move with the mayor and all of that. If anybody would like to partner and help out.
Absolutely. Just letting you know, my granddaughter's getting married
That day?
in the evening, but it's not till the
Oh,
evening.
in the evening, great, okay. Cute. All right,
I'm hoping to do a maze bike ride.
all right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, I love it. Step into my, oh, there's my gavel.
Oh, yeah, it got moved during
Gavel go.
our change.
I'm sorry, we need a motion to approve Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall's
Oh,
request.
thank you so much, Madam Clerk. We need a motion.
May I
Early
motion for-
moves.
Oh, I'm
You need
gonna
a
have
second?
Mayor-
Oh,
then
he wants to
members.
move it?
I can move my item.
I
Yeah,
don't.
I'd love to.
Oh, yeah, I
Yes.
don't care.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall moved, Councilmember, seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Acala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe? Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. Right, that is approved. Next, we will have a motion to adjourn.
Can I move that one?
Go for it.
Early moves.
Member Early moved and Councilmember Alcala seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Acala?
Aye.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Roscoe? Mayor Pro Tem Sulpicio Hall?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. All right, this item is approved. Good night, everybody.
I didn't have much friggin' notes on my meeting for